Jackson and Nina Holzer here, so we are ready to go, and I believe we have D&D staff as well.
Oops, sorry.
We're streaming now.
There's something to drink, Chair. We don't need you. We need you to be good.
TV 20 all set?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the meeting, Development Planning Sustainability Committee meeting back to order. The next few days, we are hearing ordinance number 7320-21. Authorize the Director of Community Development to apply for and accept grants from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for fiscal year 2021 under the Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. For the 2021 Federal Home Investment Partnership Act Program, Emergency Solutions Grant Program, and the Housing Opportunity for Persons with AIDS Program, and authorizing contracts and other expenditures. Director, welcome back. We have left off under our housing assistance programs. I will turn the floor back over.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I won't, we did introductions earlier, so and I believe we left off in the middle of Commissioner Jackson's housing rehab presentation. So I'll turn it over to Commissioner Jackson to let us continue.
To the chairman and to all council members, on page 3.1 is our budget for our proposed 2021 program year. On the CDBG, the total is $2.2 million. For home is $962,000, and for our total grand total is $3,584,074. So that's our budget. It covers the repair of home, SHAP, program admin, the SHAP and chore administration, and then our maintenance programs, the furnace hot water tank replacement, furnace repair, senior tree trimming, and gutter cleaning. As we have already reviewed repair home and SHAP, we would go to our maintenance programs, and our maintenance programs start on page 3-3. The furnace repair and hot water tank replacement program. This program is operated in partnership with Community Housing Solutions, and they have been operating this program for many, many years. The income guidelines is 50% of median income for homeowners with emergency furnace replacement or hot water tank replacement. The other maintenance program that is also operated through CHS is the furnace repair program, and it is also 50% of median. And we attempt to repair a furnace before we attempt to replace a furnace. So if a house is also eligible for the HWAP program, then that house will be referred to CHN Housing Partners. If they are not, then the furnace repair, hot water tank replacement, and furnace replacement programs are operated for the city through CHS. We've also talked about the tree trimming program that is operated in partnership with the Department of Aging and Urban Forestry. And the last maintenance program that is operated with CHS as our partner is the gutter cleaning program. And this program is designed to assist 35% of median and disabled adults with cleaning their gutters to aid in increasing the age of their home, their roof. And the last maintenance program that we started this past in 2020 was the exterior home repair program. And the exterior home repair program, though, is funded with general fund money. And the exterior paint program has started in 2020. And we are completing the year 2020 and the year 2021. And we have also started accepting applications for 2021. So those are the maintenance programs that we have presently. We have a home maintenance program manager. That position is vacant at this present time. And that person will be overseeing all of the home maintenance programs that we presently have and the home maintenance programs that we are looking at putting into place. And so I believe then that will be all of the programs that are funded through CDBG that we have in the Division of Neighborhood Services.
So the, for the other program that you have, do you have the accomplishments listed under section 3.9 for the home repair
Yes.
services?
Yes,
And then 3.10,
yes. We have the jobs that were completed in Raw and Sharp for 2020. We have, which was 62 for Sharp and 9 for Raw. We have the jobs that were completed in furnace and hot water tank replacement, 128 furnace replaced and 42 hot water tanks replaced. We have the gutter replacement, gutter cleaning program, I'm sorry, and we did 44 jobs in the gutter cleaning program.
and then the new program that was added for the exterior home repairs. Do you have the list of those accomplishments as well?
The exterior repair program was one that we added last year, but due to the pandemic, we were not able to really get that one off the ground. So we'll try again this year for those that really only need exterior repairs to their home and not interior work. So we don't have any accomplishments this year for the exterior home
Okay.
repair.
And did the age-friendly home repair program accomplishments make this list as well?
No, this is just only funded with CDBG or home.
Okay, all right, so we'll have that under the general fund, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a couple hands up. Councilman Anthony Hairston and then Councilman Bashir Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the commissioner, I'm looking for is the exterior home repair program listed in our book? Maybe I'm over.
It's on
The description, I'm sorry.
it's 3.6, section 3.6.
Okay, yeah, there it is. All right, I was stopping one page too soon. So that is also funded through CDBG dollars as well, correct?
To the chair, to the councilman, yes.
Okay, and what are the guidelines for this exterior home repair the same as maybe SHAP or Roth?
It is similar to both. It is a loan, which would make it similar to repair a home.
Loan, okay.
And there are the various interest rates and some of the requirements as to the bidding and all of that would be the same as Raw and or SHAP.
Okay, so that's a loan. Okay, I just wanted to be clear whether that was a loan or that was a grant. All right, and then the exterior paint program. So two things. One, I noticed we were made aware. I think the chairman sent it out. What was it? End of January, early February. Chairman Francatelli, that the paint program was being rolled out again for 2021. I think I had emailed you back in the 2020. Did we have any information about that? And then we got the email from you subsequently after that. But the application says that the applications are due back by February 28th. That is the time from when it was rolled out and that we were made aware of the application to the time that it is due. That's what, 4 weeks or less. That is a very, very tight timeline in order for us to go out, one, during the pandemic, and one, in the dead middle of winter, to go out and have people complete this application or get them out to folks or work with them to complete the paperwork requirements to turn them in. Is there a reason for this very, very short timeline to turn around the application to the department?
To the chair, to the councilman, the application was available approximately the same time this year as it was last year. And it's because we get so many applications and we have to turn them around in a short period of time in order to get the vouchers to the approved applicants and get the paint vendors ready. So last year we had 874 people that we approved, and we committed for over 420,000 in vouchers to those individuals. And we did not have to extend. We got all of those in before the end of February.
Well, good. A good number. But 2020 is this time in 2020 is not the same as this time in 2021. We're living in a very much different time where you cannot interface as you once would. You're not having block club meetings face to face or war club meetings as we once were during these times, or even holiday parties or New Year's parties or gatherings with residents in order to disseminate this information. Because along with our Healthy Home Initiative in Collinwood area, AJ and I work closely together to ensure that residents are aware of the program, and we did a great job last year, and we're trying this year. But as you know, sometimes when you visit someone home and knock on the door, they may not answer. They talk to you through the door, or they look out and don't come to the door at all because they just don't want to interact. And so the time it takes to mail the application to them, for they to open the mail, complete it, contact you, make appointment, that month timeline seems to be a bit tight. Looking at the situation that we are currently faced with versus what we were dealing with in 2020, which was not the same as we are experiencing today. So I would have thought that maybe the department would have considered those things and looked at a way to whether that is through, I don't know I know that you can turn it in through, you have to drop it off, or you can sit it in electronically, but allowing for a little bit more time for folks to, the mail issues that we're having, delayed mail, just all of those things considered, giving more time for people to submit the application than 1 month before the deadline has occurred. And to that, Mr. Chair, through the chair to the commissioner, I noticed that the cap was reduced from 1,200 to 600, if I'm not mistaken. I believe last cycle you can get up to $1,200 in paint and supplies, but I now believe that it's reduced to 600. Am I correct?
That was actually $1,500 last time.
Well, 1,500. Yeah.
Yes. Councilman, to your first point about the application due date, we would do what we did last year. If we don't have sufficient applications to commit the $500,000, then we will extend the deadline. So we are not, it's not a hard deadline, but we're trying to get people to get them in so that we can get everything approved, and they have the summer months and the spring and the summer in which to actually complete their painting. So we are open to extending the deadline. And for the reduction in the dollar amount from 1,500 to the 600, we used what we were averaging, which is about 600 per person. We're using that figure, and the 1,500 kind of confused people last year. People actually thought they were going to get 1,500. So we tried to make it more manageable for the individual. That is about 1,600, and it takes that about 600 to paint your exterior of your home.
To the chair, to the commissioner, thank you for the response for the first question. So knowing that the deadline, has the ability to be pushed if in fact that we don't receive a sufficient amount of applications is a good thing. And secondly, as relates to the reduction in the amount eligible for a person who applied for the program, if in fact they come back and let's say this house they have maybe was the 3,000 square foot property, right? That is going to take a bit more than $600 worth of paint to in order to do it correctly. You know, is the department looking at some of those cases as well to determine whether there is a need for an additional $100 or $150 or $200 in funding in order to complete the property correctly?
Yes. To the chair, to the councilman, what we have put in place for this year is, and we had it in place last year, it was a formula that tells us how much paint that an individual will need to paint their home. So with that formula now, we are going to start to look at the condition of the home, because a home that has not been painted, and you can tell that it's up against bare wood, is going to require more paint and more primer in order for that house to be painted. So once we do that initial inspection, we can tell whether we're going to need more than $600 or are we going to need less. Some houses will require less and some houses will require more, but we have the flexibility in order to provide that homeowner, I'm sorry, not the homeowner, the occupant, the ability to get sufficient paint to paint their property. Last year, the $1,500 limit, we had some individuals that actually did spend up to the $1,500 limit, not because the house required $1,500 in paint, it was because of their approach to painting. So we are putting more training in place for people to learn how to paint, what to look for when they're painting, how to utilize primer to this best usage, and how to properly prep their home for painting.
Good. Okay. Through the chair to the commissioner, thank you for that. So understanding that number is sort of fluid, depending on the situation, is good. I was just hoping that we were not handcuffed to that $600 hard cap, but really looking at these situations as they come. If in fact someone needs greater than $600 to paint their home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions at the time.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Bashir Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Chair to Director Waggers. If we were to increase the AMI, what impact will that have on, what's the concern of why it's at 35%? Why are we at 35%?
I think the concern really is we have a system right now that can manage up to 125 is our goal in terms of SHAP projects per year. That's a bit of combination of issues around funding, availability of contractors, and just our staff being able to process what is required. Increasing it, without increasing those other components, you're still going to only get 125 units out per year. And then it's a question of, is that the level of service that is reasonable to the demand for the program? The other component really is, if you increase the income limit, there's always a fear that the harder to reach people and serve in programs are the ones with less money. So if we target our funds or programs to those with the most need, then we can devote our resources and time in addressing those people. There's always a fear. HUD has a term called creaming, which means that you design your programs, and what you might end up doing is only serving the most affluent in this sort of low income pool. And that might seem a little strange, but HUD really wants you to target programs that can address need beyond anything else.
Okay, so if we were to increase the AMI, because even if according to what you said, which I appreciate, that basically at 35%, we are taking care of the very, very neediest of us, which happens to be only 125 people, basically a year sometimes. I mean, are you averaging 125 completed projects a year?
Yeah, we were averaging right around 100.
Wow. So basically 400 people are, and how many, and that's the funding that we are receiving. Is anything being left on the table?
No, I mean, Commissioner Jackson can probably speak a bit more, but I think we actually, we use most of that money up, if not all of it, in the given year. I think there's some years where we even look for more money from free balances to make sure that we can get a couple projects out the door and not have them wait until the next budget year. So.
Now, Director, have you all ever, when it comes to reaching out to grants, outside funding, have you ever looked at bringing in other resources in?
We do. I think what Commissioner Jackson is very good at. I mean, she's very good at getting lead hazard abatement grants, and sometimes it might make sense to put a project over into a lead abatement program. Unfortunately, most foundations and philanthropy institutions don't give grants directly to municipalities because we have the federal government that acts as our philanthropy, I guess. So there's not, and then there's the question of really when we want to run programs, we like to develop programs that can be there year in and year out, not one-off sort of, we get one grant of say 50,000 or 100,000, run it for a program, then we might not be able to do it again if we don't have a future source of revenue. So it's, but I think where we look and where we approach this is less from trying to think of ourselves as a nonprofit that needs grant funding, but more as a public institution that has a resource that is there year in, year out. How can we leverage that to say get banks on board with various financing programs? Can they offer low interest loans with more favorable requirements and not the restrictions under FHA, but something more creative? And I think we are exploring those and having those conversations. And when we have our conversation with Aisha Weeks, the banking relations manager, I think that's the more the structural change that you're looking for. I think that's the venue for that.
Understood. Chair, before I make this amendment, I want to say something that I believe that this community development needs to craft a plan, or what resources would it take to increase the amount of workers, to increase the amount of people who are doing the work, to increase the people who are working. Because if 35% is only 120, what's the number, Director? About 35% is reaching the 100 and.
Well, that gives us a pipeline in that we can then put through 100 into 125 housing units per year.
So this program that you have, if we were to increase it, do you have in your mind, or have you all even thought about what that program would cost if it is to be increased?
I think Commissioner Jackson and I had this conversation a little bit. It's, money is one component, but then you need to talk about those other components. And I think we are open to that conversation. I don't want to give you a dollar figure at this public hearing, because I don't think that is, it gives you enough information, actionable information on what it actually takes. I don't want to tell you, well, we need another $1 million and that will double everything, because that might not be the answer unless we get the other pieces to fall into place.
Well, let me say this. So, Chair, I make an amendment that we increase our cap from 35% to 70%. I make an amendment that we take it to 70%, the AMI, so that we can begin to service. This is a huge, housing is probably the biggest issue here in our neighborhood, and particularly right now when it comes to COVID and our seniors inside of their homes, they need more help than we are giving them. I make an amendment that we increase it to 70%.
You're on mute, Chairman. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad. Oh, We can, Councilman, we can have that discussion during reconciliation because we need to have discussion with our colleagues. As the director talked about, we're not going to increase the number of units. We're just going to cream the units and have the issue of, you know, who else doesn't get served. So let's have that discussion during reconciliation.
Is it just for Mr. Chairman, for procedural purposes, wouldn't that be an amendment on the floor, motion for an amendment?
I don't know. I'm not. I don't recall us amending a policy restriction before. But if someone wants to make that amendment and someone wants to second it,
once again, I make the amendment that we increase the AMI from 35% to 70%. To raise the income threshold for the SHAT program from 35% to 70%.
okay. There's no second. Thank you. Let's move on.
I second. I'm sorry. I will second that.
Okay. Discussion on this. My concern about this is exactly what was raised by the director is, you know, so we certainly can cut out more people. We're not adding more people to by expanding this, but the concern is, you know, we're capping out every year the number of folks that we serve, and it just raises the issue of who do we leave off? So we leave off the very poor who may not have access, that we don't have to work as hard. Those are all the different questions you have when you start moving the cap numbers when we're already spending the money that we bring in.
I mean, the fact is that this issue that we have is a major issue, and adding the higher percentage, you know, and mine, if it's only 100 people who are the most neediest, at doubling that, it's not like you're taking care of the wealthy. The majority of our city is experiencing poverty. So the people that we are assisting is from the east side to the west side. We're all being impacted by it. So if the community development has to come back with a better plan to figure out how to do more and do better, then we need to look for find out where we can find the resources that can help more people during this time.
Can I would just discussion on that, on the amendment?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say though, in response to the director's comments, though, not serving more people assumes that the city would not staff up and increase their contractors in order to accommodate the increase in the AMI. So I just don't want to accept that assumption, because I think if there's a policy amendment made to the AMI saying that we go from 35 to 70, then it would be incumbent to provide the infrastructure to achieve that goal. So I guess I'm uncomfortable with the characterization that if we did that, there's no way we would serve more people. That would be a choice to not serve more people.
No, the issue of serving more people is just you have X amount of dollars to do X amount of houses, not a matter of contracting. Well, that's not relative to serving more people.
Right. So we'd have to identify additional funding sources. Correct.
On that point, Chair, the director stated that it's more than just about money. It's about contractors. It's also about the ability of the department to be able to provide people. It's really a whole structure change that we're talking about right now that has to be added. And I believe that this specific department needs to come up with a better plan on how to do more and do a better job and do it quicker. 5 to 6 months is not sufficient. 100 people a year is not sufficient. With the Madam Secretary from Cleveland going to Housing and Urban Development, we should be prepared as a city to be able to go to her and say, we are structurally prepared, but we need more resources. These are the things that we need. I think that we should be prepared for it rather than going into it saying, we're going to continue to do the same old thing.
Yeah, and I don't know. We don't have an attorney on this. I don't know whether this is something we can vote on, but I presume we can vote on it and then find out from the law department whether it's appropriate or not.
On that point, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We can vote on it if it's a second and there's discussion on the floor. There's no, I'm ready. unreadiness with any of the other members, we certainly can vote on it. It's within our parameter of Robert Rules of Order.
I understand we can vote on lots of stuff. I just don't know whether or not changing the guidelines within a program is something that, again, we can vote on it and then find out from the law department.
So then,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, the question would be to the director, what is your take on this? How would this impact the program to your best capacity or ability, or not? Or could you carry it forward, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
So to the councilman through the chair, I mean, the short answer, with nothing else changing, we will have a larger queue of applicants, and we will probably get the same number out. So it's whoever's at the front of that queue will be served. And then, so I don't know if that would actually shorten the time absent other changes. So, I mean, that's, based on the motion.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Councilman Jones?
Yeah, on that.
I yield. I yield to my colleague, Mr. Chairman, the deference of your as the chair. I yield to my colleague.
Thank you, Councilman. So basically what we're saying is even in increasing the AMI, you're still going to be able to only do the same amount that you're doing now. That's what you're saying?
With the same budget and the same staffing scenario and the same pool of contractors, I believe we would still produce the same number of units.
So, Chair to the director, so then why not be able to go back and say, okay, now the AMI is increased. That means that we have to do more. We're going to need this and that in order to be able to achieve the goal of doing more and doing a better job.
What do you mean this?
We increase it and we just okay with doing the same thing that we've been doing. Well,
What do you mean this and that? Can you be more specific?
What, can you hear me, Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Chair, I know that you're the chair of this, but I don't know about your neighborhood because I haven't been over there as much. But I know that this is a serious issue in my neighborhood and in neighborhoods that we're discussing. And, I know that you're the chair, but, I would appreciate you allowing the administration to explain and to express itself. I know that you are expert on it. I would like to hear from them on
I was just asking,
why we
I was
can't do it.
asking a clarifying point. What do you mean by this and that?
I know, but every time that I speak on something, you speak out on behalf of the administration. And it just concerns me. You're my colleague, you're not their colleague. So I need some deference in regard to this conversation, please. So the point that I'm making is that if we increase the AMI, that says to the department, you guys go back, come up with a better plan. What do you need in order for us to do more than what we're doing today? How do we better this process? The process is flawed, it's not working. And even the 100 and something people, it still takes a year for a completed project. So what needs to happen is we need to look at how do we make this department better. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, through the
Mr. Chair, can I? Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead, Director.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not against having these conversations. I think my understanding is the goal to serve more people, and that's certainly a goal that I share and my department shares. I think we do know the limits of the resources we have, and if this desire to serve more people, say it sounds like you want to double it, that's why you're suggesting the doubling of the AMI, then that really does require a complete augmentation of a number of factors in our program that would take time, not just a question of finding money, but staffing and bringing more contractors
Okay, then
on.
you gotta do it. I mean, then you gotta do it. We provide services. Okay, you gotta do more work. That's good. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Okay, we gotta go and do more work. As a department, you have to go back and figure out how to do a better job and make processes more better to serve the people of Cleveland. That's what we have to do. That's why we're here for this. So if you gotta go do more work, that's what you need to do. Let's get it going.
I would just, if I could have a point, Councilman Jones through the chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I yield to my colleague McCormick as well.
Okay, whoever had the floor, I apologize. I was just gonna
Councilman
have
Jones had the floor, but the discussion is,
well, there are
robust.
two Joneses.
It's the
There's two-
kind of discussion we need to be having about these programs. And what you're looking at is council members who want to work. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I was just confused on which Jones had the floor. Forgive me. I would just make a note that, you know, we're talking about an increase in the AMI for the CDBG budget. But of course, we're going to be, after this week, going into the general fund budget. So if I understand that the CDBG dollars may be limited when it comes to supporting the SHAP program. However, the general fund budget is another opportunity to supplement this program to meet an increased need caused by an AMI increase. So to Councilman Jones's, motion, the question of, yeah, but you got to put resources behind it. That question not only I think could apply to the CDBG conversation, but also to the general fund. So I just wanted to point that out, that not only is this a question of what CDBG dollars can be allocated to SHAP, but also when we look at the general fund budget and where the city's dollars go, if we as a council, wanted to make a decision that we wanted to move some dollars from the general fund to supplement this program, we could do that. Thank you.
Councilman Joe Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the discussion of the motion of and taking the vote, getting the clarification from the director was important. And the issue is, what do we have total at this moment in time that we expenditure in our budget for this?
So through the chair to the council person, so in the budget on 3.1, it's a combination of, so if we're talking about SHAP, that's item B under section 3, so it's 930,000. If we want to double and serve the same number of people, it's that. But I would have to say there's probably going to be an impact under item C, program administration, possibly even the SHAP chore administration of aging. So, it is, I have to speak on behalf of my staff to not recognize, the level of work they are doing today. We've received almost 3 times our normal budget in trying to get stuff out the door, and that has put it has taken a Herculean effort on the part of my staff. So I want to be cognizant of the implementation factors and advise you appropriately of those, and that it's not just an extra $1 million, but I'd have to figure out in terms of staffing. Commissioner Jackson will need to see, okay, I need an intake person, I might need an inspector. There's components there that need to be fleshed out and put to you so that you can be properly informed.
And just for clarifications, Mr. Chairman, to my colleague, we're specifically homing in on this particular one program, which is SHAP. Is that correct? Or are we talking about all of these items on 3.1? Down in section 3 on page 3.1.
Excuse me, Council, is that a question to me or to your colleague?
Yeah, that's a question to whomever can answer, because it's an amendment on the floor to increase this. Which particular programs are we homing in on, or are we homing in on all of these programs? Mr.
Councilman
Chairman.
Bashir Jones, were you specific to the SHAP? My understanding is the amendment was for the SHAP program.
Yes, that's what the amendment was for.
Okay, so Councilman Joe Jones, it was for the SHAP program, which was item D on page 3.1.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Chairman, given the fact that the director has made the comments that he has made, I know that my colleague and a number of us who have been, and I know you have been suffering through this program during the whole duration of your being on the council, it is a great demand for our citizens to have such a program. And I don't see, given the fact that we do have an extensive staff here, where this would be a problem of adding just an additional $1 million and maybe a couple of more contractors to it. It's not something I think that, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to the director and in appreciation, an abundance of appreciation of all the work that the men and women do in that department, I don't see this as being something that would cause for there to be a overwhelming of the system, so to speak. So, Mr. Chairman, I have no unreadiness. This program deserves to have an additional $1 million in it. Even if that means we go get that $1 million from the general fund, our citizens need it. We don't have a housing program in the city of Cleveland. And then this would also, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, to those who are listening, if there's a better argument or there is some other unreadiness, I'm willing to listen to it and try to really fundamentally understand why that would be a issue of adding an additional $1 million to the program. And second, Mr. Chairman, I think that we are poised and our department is ready after adding a lot of staff in the last couple of years to get staffed up into place, that we have more than an abundance of personnel that's in place right now to handle this particular increase. There may be a question of contractors, but short of that, I think that at the end of the day, we can beef that up too. And then I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, as my colleague Bashir Jones has stated, and I'm glad this is another piece that he's really cued in and honed in on this morning. So he's really hot this morning, would be the issue again of where's the partners in the city of Cleveland? Where's the financial institutions? I would like to see our banking institutions involved in putting together programs that could be in tandem with this particular program that could really truly make a significance and an impact in the quality of lives for our elderly and for the senior citizen population in the city of Cleveland. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm here, even though I don't sit on the committee. I'm willing to sit on the committee, willing to serve at the chair's preference and doing whatever is needed to assist and helping the director with this. And I'm quite sure my colleagues who have made amendments on it and who are for this would also probably work with me in tandem to see how we can make this happen. And if not now, then we should start working on it for next calendar year. Mr. Chairman, I have no unreadiness for a vote on this issue.
So just a clarified point, we are not voting for adding money. We're only voting to change the AMI for eligibility.
That point, Chair.
We have Councilman Brian Mooney and then Councilman Cleveland, and then is it a point on Joe Jones's comment or?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at this, and it's to do with the motion, and I just have a couple questions. So, what is the amendment? I mean, I don't understand what we're amending. Are we amending a line item in the budget, or is council seeking to amend the mayor's policy as set by the mayor? I mean, that's what I'm confused on what you're trying to amend.
Point, Chair, if I can, because I was.
Go ahead, Councilman Bashir Jones.
So just to be clear, what we're saying is that, and for us which is the whole city really, but of course more areas are hit harder than others. There's an issue around the fact that there are residents who are not able to get the support that they need, that they're too poor to fix their homes, but too rich to get support from the government, from the city. So right now the AMI is 35%, which according to the director is about 100 or so people that can receive the help yearly from the city. So what I'm asking for is an amendment to increase the AMI to 70%, to basically the median income to 70%, so that we can begin to help more people. I do want to say on the point of Councilman Jones, who I really appreciate you for speaking up, because I know that you really have this issue over in Ward 1, which is the first Black middle class in the city of Cleveland. What I want to say to everyone is that I'm not saying let's put more work on the great people who are working these programs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying let's come back to the table, figure out what this department needs to be more successful. If that's adding more workers, if that's adding a better system, whatever that looks like, let's come to the, I'm not saying let's be clear. I'm not saying let's add more work to the worker. They're doing great. They're overworked in many cases and underpaid. What I'm saying is let's add more resources so that people can do more. So to answer your question, Councilman Mooney, what I'm suggesting is let's increase the AMI from 35% to 70%. And what that should do is encourage this department to say, okay, it's increased now. What do we need as a department in order to make this flow smoothly? Thank you.
Okay, and so following up on this, to the chairman, this AMI, who determined the amount? Was that per the mayor's policy, or is that done by statute?
Director?
Yeah, it was a local program design, so the administration had established it, and it's been that way for many years, if not
Many years.
Okay, well, listen, I mean, listen, I'm an attorney, and I applaud everything that both Councilman Jones want to do. And listen, we're the poorest city in the country, and we have the highest poverty rate in the country. And all these programs, they just are a drop in the bucket. But just from a procedural standpoint, I don't believe council can, at a forum like this, amend a policy of the executive branch. The whole point is, it's not part of our budget. It's not a line item. Like if you wanted to appropriate a different amount of money, we could do that. We could change the money amount, but we don't have the power to unilaterally change the policy or address the policy in this form of the executive branch. Otherwise, no offense, we would have done it before about the motorcycle issue, right? And we're all frustrated about the motorcycles going through our neighborhood and the police not being able to chase them. That's the mayor's policy. He is the executive. And this is a directive of the executive branch. If it's done by statute, this amount, we could amend a statute. But just to seek at a budget forum to address something that might be a good thing to raise the AMI, I mean, of course, council can do whatever it wants, but that doesn't mean it has any effect. Let me finish. It doesn't have any effect or impact. So, I mean, as an attorney, I'll just tell you, Mr. Chairman, we can't vote on this. That's not within our authority or power.
Absolutely incorrect. You're absolutely incorrect. We are the legislative body and we can vote on it. They can't put anything through the budget without council people, without the councilmen and councilwomen voting on it. So this is what you're saying is absolutely incorrect. This is our very job to do, to make sure that programs.
Can we get one of the staff attorneys on for an opinion before we vote, Mr. Chairman?
The mayor is the executive, but the mayor is not above city council. We all work together. That is the point of our job as legislators.
Mr. Chairman.
So the mayor brings his budget, and it's up to us.
Mr. Chairman.
So this is an expend budget. We're talking about services that we're expending. So let's finish the question and I'll circle back.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would just, my new colleague, Mr. Mooney, there has been a number of legislations that the council has changed the administration's policy in the past. I would know because I changed one of those policies in the past as it relates to economic development and funding to local development companies and corporations throughout our city. So the council has the responsibility given to it by the city's charter to make laws as well as to deal with anything policy, procedures, processes, and matters. Anything that relates to any of that kind of work, we have the deference to do that. But in this whole process, with the respect of the chairman of the committee, he did talk about some of the stuff that we could go back to. We don't have to necessarily deal with right at the table, but we can talk about it in reconciliation. So when it gets to our reconciliation, the council normally would have a caucus to go over those various different items, and those debates would happen in that reconciliation on any discussions or topic matters as relates to our budget here now, in addition to talking about block grant budget, but also our general fund dollars. So we do have every discretion given to us,
Okay.
empowered by our charter to do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Mooney?
I listen, I understand what you want to do, and there's different ways to do it. This is just not the appropriate way. We can't just by a vote at a caucus change a policy of the mayor. You just can't do that. We don't have the power to do that.
Mr. Chairman.
It's that simple.
So,
Mr. Chairman.
yeah, so we're, you know what, we're going to have this debate. We're not going to debate a legal term here.
Mr. Chair, can I just have a clarification on the amendment?
Sure.
From my understanding, we are hearing today ordinance 73, 2021.
Correct.
So we're hearing an ordinance. So Councilmember Jones requested to amend ordinance 73, 2021 to add an amendment requiring the Department of Community Development to increase the AMI for the SHAP program from 35% to 70%. To me, that is a perfectly legal request to add an amendment.
So we're
to add an amendment to an ordinance in which we're hearing.
So what we will have to let's finish this discussion and then we'll circle back for closure. We have Councilman Cleveland. I'm sorry, I apologize. Councilman Mooney, were you done?
No, if we do the amendment as McCormick sets out, that's entirely different than what was presented. I mean, if that's the case, I mean, I guess we could consider it.
Okay. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Cleveland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to amending the policy, you know, I think it's fair for discussion, and I think it's a good point to discuss. But I agree with Councilman Mooney that this is not the forum or the time for it. And I think it's something that, as opposed to just imposing our will on the administration, I think we do need to sit down and have a discussion and really understand, you know, from their operational standpoint, what this means. Not just, well, we can just add another $1 million, or we can, you know, give them more staff, but we really need to understand what it is, because, you know, we're talking dollars, and if we're ultimately, if it's going to cause us to, or cause the administration to need to add $1 million to this budget, that's coming from somewhere else. You know, this is not we don't have an endless tap, you know, like Congress. We don't have a printing machine like Congress. You know, we have a finite number of dollars. And in fact, we don't even know how much we have yet. You know, we're estimating that we got X number of dollars, and we are hopeful that this administration in Washington now will be more generous is not the word, but more willing to help our cities. But we don't know exactly, you know, what our final budget, CDB budget is going to be, number one. Number two, in terms of looking at making a decision now, when we can just shift something from the general fund, you know, we got to really, you know, we had a fairly non-catastrophic budget year last year, but I don't know much longer that's going to last. And we need to be realistic. You know, the pandemic is not over. We got, you know, variations and mutation of the virus, and we don't know if there's going to be there probably will be more surges and possibly more shutdowns of the economy. So I think we got to be a little more prudent when we think about what we're going to do with the general fund. But overall, again, I think it's, you know, it's fair and it's good, and the time is right to have those discussions. You know, a lot of things have been done. They've been in place for a number of years, and yeah, let's put that on the table. But to do that right here, right now, to me, you know, sort of a knee-jerk fashion, I don't think is prudent on our part. Let's sit down and have a real discussion and make a real good decision that's going to be helpful to our residents, but also, you know, that won't hamstring us or hamper us in another way.
That point, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Polensek?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. If I might give a little bit of a overall perspective here, if I made a my honorable colleague, I think what we're all hearing and seeing is this growing frustration within the body as it pertains to our inability to address these growing concerns in our neighborhood. And it's like, this is one of these things that it's in your face. You cannot deny it. I think Bashir has probably summed it up as good as anybody can. It's frustrating. I look at my own statistics that was passed out today. In my ward, 1 SHAP loan. I mean, come on, please. You know, I mean, that's absolutely outrageous, outrageous. And yet I refer people all the time in. So whether this specifically is the time, I think we, to the chair and to Blaine and to Phyllis, both on the leadership team, I think we really need to step back and figure out what are we going to do to adjust, reanalyze what we've been doing, because obviously something's not working. And I've commented on it before. I ride around in sections of Glenville. I got blue tarps on houses, and we didn't have a hurricane. This is not Louisiana. We're not Florida. People can't fix their roofs. They can't fix this. They can't fix that. And yet they see all this, they see new development. They see this going here and they go there. And yet the bulk of our property, our housing stock, and anyone can please correct me if I'm wrong, the overwhelming number of our homes were built prior to the Second World War. And like in many of our communities, just before and after the First World War. So we've got this massive problem. We've got these folks, working poor, elderly, people who have fallen on hard times, and their inability to fix their homes. And we have the ability, and I know as well as anyone, we have the ability to adjust dollar amounts. Now, whether we can change administrative policy, that's another question. I think Councilman Mooney has brought that up. That's a debatable point there. But we have the ability to change dollar amounts, but I think we should do it in unison with the administration. It's up to us to impress upon the administration, the Director of Community Development and his team, and the mayor and his team, that we've got to do something differently. Just listen to the discussion. I listened to all the discussion that's taking place here. There's a frustration within our body. We're trying to help our citizens, and it's not there. And when I look at my own numbers, and I'm sure you all each have your own numbers as well. I mean, it's like, you know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We need help. And so I'll leave it at that point, you know, and I'll look to the chair and the leadership team that is on this Zoom call. Got to do something different here. This is not cutting it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Polensek, and appreciate your calm approach. None of us are short of outrage of the issues that folks are facing in our communities, and we all see it. We see it in our neighborhoods. We see it block by block, so we all feel it and represent our constituency accordingly. A couple of quick points before I take the next step here. Councilman Bashir Jones and Councilman Joe Jones.
I you know, Chair, the calm approach hasn't been working. It hasn't been working. And it's very problematic as I listen to my colleagues who, you know, one of our colleagues, Councilman Mooney, made a statement that's very problematic. And I say this with all genuine sincerity. The idea that the mayor or the administration said it, and we've never done this before. We don't do this. And we're giving all of the, you know, all of the power to the administration. Our job is to work with the administration. Our job is not to sit back and allow the administration to do it. And I'm hoping long after I'm gone, the next generation of council people will begin to not just have this calm spirit, but to have a passionate spirit that the people always come first. And I'm not questioning anybody's love or anything. That's a matter of the heart. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that our people are truly going through a serious issue around housing. And a lot of you understand that, a lot of you get that. But this idea of this is not the time. This is the time. There is no other time. People are suffering right now. And the idea of we'll just talk about it later. We'll just discuss it another time. We'll see, we can do that from the comfort of our position. But what about the people who we stand for and we fight for? So I just would hope that this body, long after any of us are here, will have a passion for the people and not sit back and allow administration to do whatever they want to do. We are all human beings. People make mistakes. This program is not working to the best of its ability. It's not. And it's not no fault on the people who are here. They're great people. They have a love for the community too. So I'm not questioning their love. I'm saying they need more support. And sometimes as a legislative body, our job is to push and to nudge, not to be disrespectful, but for us to push and nudge one another to become our best selves and the best city that we can be. So that's what I wanted to come across. Chair, thank you so much, man. You've been very patient in this robust conversation, but guess what? The people want to see us have a passionate conversation when it comes to them. It's okay for us to be passionate about them. They deserve that. That's why they put us here. But the idea that we're going to sit back and just let somebody else do something, you can choose to do what you want to do, but that's not going to be me. Thank you, Chair.
Councilman Griffin?
Mr. Chairman, you have me on the floor.
I'm sorry.
But I'll yield to
Councilman Joe Jones, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the argument on this issue of amendment has been well laid out. The council does have the authority to amend it. And we can also talk about, discussing how we deal with this. But the SHAP program is a very important program. And Martin Luther King Jr. always stated that there's always the time to do what's right. And we don't have those kind of discussions in caucus to talk about this in depth. We only have this around this time period every year to talk about these various programs. And we don't have the forum, or how would you say it? I think some of our colleagues don't like the term setting up subcommittees, but we don't have the outlet to really fundamentally granular get down into these kind of programs and see how they truly can function to help us in our city to have the tools that we need to have to help our citizens. And I only have 6 people in my neighborhood, and I've constantly sat here at the table constantly talking about how we can deal with the SHAP program. When I came in here in 2018, I know we were like 150 applications behind, and that's the reason why I asked where we are currently with it. But Mr. Chairman, I have no unreadiness at this table. We have amended legislation, and we have changed legislation. We have this is not something that's unprecedented. It has happened in the past. As I stated earlier, I've even at the table of City Council, when then Mayor Jackson was a council member, amended the allotment of funds and resources as relates to coming into my neighborhood to my local development corporations and changing those allotments around. In addition to that, we amended legislation when it came to public infrastructure improvements, when it came to Kinsman Avenue, when the choice was either to have it as asphalt or concrete. We amended it. I amended it, led that amendment with their new incoming councilman, Zach Reed and Fannie Lewis, to fix it so that we would have concrete. Because even then, as now, we're seeing a lot of our infrastructure just basically asphalt, not the concrete infrastructure. So to my colleague, we have amended stuff at the table before. That's the job that the people send us to do. And then the challenge is how do we in reconciliation deal with making those policy changes effective and efficient. Of course, utilizing intelligence to make sure that what decisions we do make doesn't hurt another part of the budget. So certainly there has to be thought in when you make changes. But in this particular change here, I don't see that as being something, Mr. Chairman, that would devastate us in such a way, oh, it's going to be bad, the whole house is going to burn down. That's not the case. And then, Mr. Chairman, lastly, I would ask that we have for the rest of our hearings, we have the legal department here at the table. Normally, they would always be at our tables if we were gathered, if it wasn't for the coronavirus. And Mr. Chairman, I would ask that they be here for any kind of clarification, so that when a council member has such questions like Mooney, where he doesn't know for sure if we're able to do it or not, then that person and the legal department can answer those questions. And I don't have any other further readiness for voting for this. I'm ready to vote for it. I would even go as far, but my colleague didn't go as far as to amending it, putting another $1 million into it, because I think that we need more money into this. We have the money to do it. We should be doing it. We should be reaching out, helping the citizens of our city of Cleveland who have fought so long for us to have and paved the path for us to be where we are, talking about our senior citizens. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your patience, and I really appreciate your leadership. No further comment on this, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Joe Jones, we have lots of additional forums and hearings, and we have had discussion. I drive Joe Tytron crazy on keeping the list together of when we have special topics. So it's not a matter of whether or not we have the desire. We can always have hearings on these topics. This was not one that was brought up to say we needed to have a hearing to raise the AMI. And just to clarify, we're not adding number of units. The amendment is to raise the AMI on this. We're not increasing production on this. This is so, that whole issue of, what are we accomplishing? It could be that we're not hitting the poorest of the poor. So those are all the complications you have when we just make a policy change. Councilman Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the spirited debate. And I agree with Councilman Joe Jones. We should make sure that we get a legal opinion. I think that's what Councilman Mooney has asked as well, to make sure that our attorneys are here. Also want to make sure that we get clarification, because it's my understanding that even though there's other council members that are on this call and everybody's interested in CDBG, that the DPS committee is the one that would need to vote this out of this committee. So I'm just trying to make sure I get clarity
Our parliamentarian Mike Valensik has acknowledged, yes, this is DPS committee.
So Mike, want to clarify, because I know he is, okay. So DPS, great.
Yeah.
Only members of the committee vote on a motion or an amendment.
Okay, so that's the first clarification. And the second clarification is want to make sure we get a legal opinion. Let me just do this. And I want to, I understand my colleagues' passion over all of this, and I understand Mr. Mooney's concern over this. I want to try to bring some levity to this. I too support raising the AMI from 35 to 70. I do believe that it will be it'll be something that'll help us be able to serve more people. I also though believe that we should understand the impact, because one of the things that I'm concerned about, that if we can increase that AMI and hear about this from a programmatic standpoint, then we're throwing those lower income people into a bigger pool. And if they're in a bigger pool, will that hurt some of the folks that are lower in poverty or in poverty at the 35%, and then we'll wind up being counter of what we're actually trying to do. So I just want to make sure programmatically that we're not going to do something that we're trying to be helpful to increase the 70% and hurt the people that are in the 35%. Director Wackers, could you get us, is that a potential of happening, or give me an understanding on how we can avoid that from happening?
Through the chair to the councilman, this is a situation that does arise when developing programs. You have to be very thoughtful in terms of who you're trying to address and who your need is. I do know the need is great in Cleveland, but whenever you create a larger pool of potential eligible people, the ones who are most successful in navigating that are always the ones that have more research in terms of time or capacity to apply. So you really need to be intentional in terms of designing your programs if you want it to meet the neediest of the needy. I think we do that now. I mean, it's really anyone earning, anyone who's eligible is essentially living at the poverty level or below. And this is a real life-changing, as the commissioner said, it can be really life-changing for those people that receive this. And I agree with you, the need is great. But again, in addressing these and given the limited resources, if you want us to be more to evaluate this, we can look at that and see how to do it. I do not know that this, and being put on the spot is the best approach. I can certainly sympathize with what your goal is.
Well, I mean, clearly you hear the passion, and I hear my colleagues being in the leadership team. This is something that the colleagues clearly have a lot of passion about, and something that the colleagues clearly want to explore. And I know that we usually take these items up in reconciliation. We're going to be at this table, well, at this computer or whatever we want to call it, for the next month. And we're going to be at this CDBG budget for the next week. Director, how soon can you give a turnaround to give us an answer of the impacts that this would have for Councilman Jones' recommendation?
Yeah, I think I probably just need an hour or two to discuss it with Commissioner Jackson. I mean, she has an idea of past experience about how the backlogs occur, where the pressure points are, or constriction areas, and I think we can give you a sense probably tomorrow or Thursday, but it would still be a general assessment based on our prior experience to get a more thorough analysis of how you want to address serving more people. That's going to be more in depth and probably require discussions with our team, with contractors, with looking at the potential impacts on our budget. But yeah, that's a bigger discussion.
Point, Chair.
So clearly council wants to serve more people. I think that the question is not how we can't do something. The question is how can we do something? And I think that's what everybody's looking for. And I don't want to take the emotion out of this. And just because I'm getting old, doesn't mean that everybody else, doesn't have, that fire in their belly, because I think everybody agrees that we want to serve these seniors that we're dealing with. And I do agree that some of these conversations can take place in a caucus setting. I prefer to do a lot of this reconciliation, but I do see Councilman Jones' point about urgency and really trying to get us. So, Mr. Chair, what I would recommend is, one, that we get an opinion from our attorneys, because even though we want to do the right thing, we want to make sure that we're doing it in good, in order, and making sure that we get the outcome that we want to get. And then number two, I think that they should bring back to us with urgency, whether it be later today or tomorrow, an opportunity for us to see how this would impact us. Because I will tell you that we also gave a higher threshold for the council money that we put in for the housing program, and that still had some challenges getting out the door too. So it's not just this project, it's also what we did with the Department of Aging when we put the $75,000 the first year and $150,000 the second year. So I want to make sure that in our haste to be ambitious and to serve more people, which I totally agree with, and I do agree that we do need to increase the AMI, that we're one, doing it good and appropriate, and then two, making sure that we're not hurting the people that's in that 35%. Because even though you gave me 100 people in 35%, I didn't get the general sense that it's only 100 people eligible under that threshold, which means that we need to do a better job of reaching the folks that's in that 35% category. And if that's the case, then maybe you guys need to counter on how we're going to increase that 35% AMI category and serve more people in that category. But I think it's clear that this council would like to serve more people and more seniors. I know that I try to take the diplomatic road, but Mr. Chair, that's my suggestion and my conversation. But I do see us needing to increase this, but I do want to make sure that we're on legally sound ground. And I'm not an attorney, but I do know common sense, and common sense tells me to make sure that we understand how this is going to programmatically impact the citizens, and it tells me making sure that we have it on legal ground. So, Mr. Chair, that's my request, if we could.
Thank you. Councilman Slife?
Good point.
We're going to Councilman Slife, Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I think I was going to say this earlier when we had the opening remarks this morning, but I held off. But I think what we're seeing, and maybe this is similar to what Councilman Polensek said, is a frustration. We have this menu of programs through CDBG, which is, we had said, it was said earlier that there's flexible uses. I tend to disagree with that, but it's very administratively burdensome dollars to use and very limited in scope. And we have a need in our city to do two things concurrently. We need to serve low-income residents, help them get the resources they need to come out of poverty. But we also need to have programs and a focus on people who are not very low income, who are people who maybe have options, who are having that question of, do they fix the front porch or do they move out of the city of Cleveland, because that they have that ability before them. And the ward that I represent really has the same average income as the county. So when we start talking about area median income and all these things, it's in many ways you're talking about the kind of neighborhood that I represent, and you'll see that there's not a lot of performance in these programs in my neighborhood, despite people struggling to figure out how they're going to make expensive repairs to older homes. I think what I would prefer to see, rather than an expansion of the AMI for this program, without having done strong due diligence to understand how it would impact the very low households who would now be in a more competitive pool for funding, would there be value in building out a parallel program, working through whether it's heritage homes or many of the other programs we have? What do we need to do to better connect residents to those resources, in many cases of which those resources might not come with the same federal strings, compliance, having to go through the process of helping a senior document their income, and we may be able to actually do more production, in that area, just because there's fewer strings. That's where I'd like to see things going. That's the need that I'm hearing from my residents, who, very often, as you can see, don't income qualify for this program, but still have a need. And my goal is to try to figure out how we can do both, because at the end of the day, we're one city, and we need to be able to meet the needs of everybody, wherever their circumstances, wherever their addresses. So with that, I'm inclined to support a lot of what Councilman Griffin said about, maybe taking a step back and making sure that whatever decision we're making, one is permissible, but two has been well researched. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And just to remind folks, this body has done that. And as Director Wackers had said, I mean, we've devised programs, the Healthy Homes Initiative, which was funded out of general fund and not block grant. Our paint programs, the senior initiative, those were all funded because we did add higher caps on those so that we can broaden our pool of eligibility and also not negatively impact our CDBG allocation. So, we have been flexible and have been able to resolve some of those concerns when we do it as a body. Councilman Bashir Jones, you had a point on Councilman Griffin's comment.
Sure. And once again, thank you for your patience during this. Really, man, I really appreciate your leadership. I want to say a couple of things of what on the point what Councilman Griffin said. And one, I just want to make it clear, we all have passion, but this is not just passion without intelligence. We're talking about the growth of a city. And if we don't take care of our elders, if we don't take care of them, we're going to lose the city, because their children are going to see how we treated their parents and they're going to leave. So this is about how do we make sure that we grow a city? If it wasn't for Roger Carney, Chair, I don't know what I would do. If it wasn't for Roger Carney and the work that he does with Community Housing Solutions, I don't know what I would have done to address the housing issue and the housing concern. So what we're saying in this thing is all about increasing productivity. And Councilman Griffin, he said it correct. That's what we're talking about, increasing productivity. if the department has to go back and tell us, this is how we increase productivity. This policy needs to change, that policy needs to change. This money needs to come in, that money needs to come in. This needs to happen, then we need to increase on how many people work here. We need for them to come to us, and every department, I hope you're watching, every department that comes to us, don't tell us, oh, we're doing fine and yeah, we're doing good. No, tell us what we need to do to maximize productivity. That's what we want to hear, okay? And if it's a city, we have to become more creative in how we bring money in, then that's what we'll do. But until then, we have to talk about how do we do more, increase productivity, right? Not just like the chair said, not just about putting $1 million in, you know what I'm saying? Because that may not be sufficient, but we want a comprehensive plan from the department who knows better. And you know what, Chair, in closing, the CDCs, you know, as a council person, I can tell you, this is why it's important that you're working with your council people. I can tell you if this application comes in and that application comes in, which person is in most need. Oh, that's Grandma Johnson from 82nd. Oh no, she needs more help. That's Grandma. Oh, he's not as bad. So we recognize that the people who are working in this office, there's still individuals who are looking at the applications. They're intelligent enough to be able to say this application needs more help than that application. All I'm saying is let's increase productivity, come back to us with a serious comprehensive plan. These policies need to change for us to do more. We need more people to work here. We need more of this. That's what we would like. That's what I would like to see. And I think that's what some of my colleagues would like to see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Point.
Councilman Hairston's up.
I just wanted to get a point on Griffin's on the right to vote, Mr. Chairman, or clarification.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the right to vote for council and individual committee assignments when they're doing an individual, you know, as you do your basic business on a average year is fine. But there's always been a right to vote at the body of whole in budget hearings and block grant budgets. We've always had the body of whole that was there. So I know the discussion came up and Mike Polensek, amen. Yes, if this was considered a situation where it was just for the development of for the community development only, but this is all of council. This is the budget hearings for the entire body. So the question is, Mr. Chairman, a clarification of the body of whole during.
So we will clarify that point. Thank you.
Yes. So because I should have a right, Mr. Chairman, to
we'll clarify
and make motions.
We'll clarify that point. Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, if I can, as I listen to the discussions, that I really hope that, as Councilman Jones and others indicated, that everyone's listening, that there is a growing frustration and anger that is setting in on this body that we are sharing because we experience that frustration with those we represent every single day, right? Someone who makes $16,000 or a few $1,000s more than what they are able to qualify for SHAP for, right? But who can qualify for the agent-friendly in place program that council funded. But as we know, that program is capped till about 10 people per ward. So the likelihood, we're talking about the same issue here, right? If we're talking about raising to 70% versus 35 and those who may have to compete, well, we currently have that problem. Think about it. For those who are a few $1,000s shy of being able to qualify for SHAP, we have that problem with them now having to compete with people with a more greater income threshold, right? But also there's a cap in the number of individuals or families that we can take care of in that initiative, which is around 8 to 10 people per Director McNamara in her testimony that we can take care of for that program. So I wholeheartedly support the request to raise this percentage to 70% because it has to be done, right? You know, someone mentioned that why hasn't this been done in the past? Well, I'm sure discussions have been had, but I think no one has really jumped into it and drilled down on the particular issue like we've done today on the need, because as we see, especially with this pandemic, the pandemic has really pulled back the sheets on a lot of these issues and programs and has shown us why we cannot continue the same way of doing business, right? That we have to do things differently. And if that means the department staffing up to a particular level, that means council increasing the budget line item to increase staffing for these departments, be able to handle this greater capacity in order to produce a greater output, then that's what we need to do. So whatever we decide today, whether we're taking the vote or not, I am in full support of increasing this to 70%. I know that there's a request to have more discussion, which is understandable because we want to be certain of what we have. But I will also say, keep in mind that we also have this problem with between SHAP, I know of the exterior home repair, but that's alone. But in terms of the grant programs, that we currently have that issue between folks who are just shy of the income for SHAP, but who is now in a competitive process with those for the aging friendly program, where that number of people that we can service is capped as well. So what do we do about those folks who are caught in between? What do we just throw our hands up and say, hey, nothing we can do? Or do we really dig deep and to find a solution to help, maybe not everybody, but the majority of those who fall within those guidelines between the two programs?
Yeah, as you pointed out, we have a myriad of programs, whether it's because if it's not SHAP, it's repair a home. If it's not repair a home, all the age friendly, being able to, and I think the department does a good job of placing the person in the right program and the right need, and whether they're eligible for financing or a loan, or whether it has to be straight grant. Those are what the program professionals and the intake folks do. So I appreciate your point on that, Councilman Hairston. Councilman McCormick, you had a clarifying point?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just one point, and I'll be brief. And I want to thank you. And I actually think this conversation is very healthy for our council to have, first and foremost. I would just say, Chair, looking at the general fund budget hearing, to the question of this amendment, where does it belong, things like that. We have, according to the mayor's estimate, $659 million general fund operating budget and a $1.78 billion overall budget. So I think that this conversation, whether it be CDBG or general fund, belongs in this budget process, not necessarily after the fact in reconciliation or otherwise, because I think we're talking about the majority of the city's funds on this. And of course, a budget is a policy decision by a mayor, by a council on where we value resources. So I think to Councilman Bashir Jones' advocacy that there should be more resources or an increased limit within the SHAP program, I think it's a policy argument to say we think more money should go into the senior housing, and maybe we take it away from area X over here and put it into senior housing. So I just want to
take it away from our NDA, or is that?
No, I'm saying the open conversation, right? I mean, we spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions on other departments in the city of Cleveland. In some of those departments, we're budgeting for $8-10 million increase. So the point is that can we, from a policy perspective, look at these programs and say we value additional resources in pot X and we want to make that happen? That conversation does not belong after we pass the budget. It belongs during the budget process. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and for everyone's input, because this is what should be happening, in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. A good, robust discussion, and we have a motion and a second. I would like to get two opinions from our law department, and we'll put this request in, have Joe Titron put this in for one. I need to understand the clarity of who can make motions and who can vote on ordinance 73, 2021. And then also whether or not we have the authority to vote on a policy within a budget, that a piece of legislation where we're voting on budget. So we'll put those two requests in. We have 3 more days of this. Maybe we have 10 more days of this before we get to general fund. But I want to make sure I have clarity before I call on the vote, just so we know what we're doing is appropriate. Since this is new for me, that we've had a motion that's not budget related. So thank you all for that discussion. I'm sorry, Councilman Jones.
I just want to say, Chair, this is not something that, and I know that's not what you're going to do, but this is not something that we're gonna just, just leave this alone.
So I asked for clarity, yes.
Yes, sir. So will we be coming back tomorrow, and will this be brought, when will this information be brought back to us? And maybe like.
So sorry for interrupting. We will not pass this ordinance until we have clarity on that issue.
Okay, understood. My question to you, what I'm trying to get clarity on is when will we get clarity on it?
That will be up to, we're gonna put that request in. I don't care if Joe Tyson has to stay up till midnight. I know Joe's, but yeah, we'll put that request into the law department. And as soon as we can get that request back, I can't predict, hopefully, they know the timing of, getting this legislation passed and getting our budgets passed. So
I just want to say, just for procedural purposes, Chair, that I lower my wing to you as the chair for what you're saying. If this does not come, this has to be, we have to vote on this as Councilman McCormick has stated before we give the okay and move forward. So what I'm saying is, if we can just push for that to become that, not only that, but also from Director Wackers and his team to come back to us with a plan of a comprehensive plan of what's needed to increase productivity in senior housing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. A couple questions on first with my colleagues. Any other questions on commissioners' programs?
Yes,
Councilman
Mr.
Joe
Chairman.
Jones.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as my colleague, and we've spent great amount of time dealing with the SHOP program. I just want to boogie back off of what which is a concern for me, is the paint program, because a lot of our cities, first
I just want to say thank you. We're on to the paint program. All right, let's go.
So Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you, because one of the major issues that I was dealing with in 2018 was a lot of our citizens was talking about what happened to the paint program. And I talked about it at the city in 2018. And I want to thank your leadership in 2019 of working to put together some kind of proposal and program to see how we could bring that paint program back in place. One of the things that is a serious issue is, and my colleague was very diplomatic and very conscious on how he dealt with the issue. And he talked about why a certain parameter of time period, because normally when people start thinking about getting their homes painted, it's usually in springtime. And so they're not talking about putting the application in the winter months. They're talking about, okay, what's available to help me get my house fixed and painted up during the springtime. So I would ask, Mr. Chairman, that we look at expanding the paint program in the city of Cleveland. It sounds like we got a couple of issues going on here. The reason why we have the shorter window, which was explained to me, and some of it was elaborated a little bit here by the commissioner, was because there's a great need for this program. So if you have the window way too wide, I presume you're going to have more people on the list or waiting list than what you can actually feel in terms of the need. And so I guess I would, open up the floor, because you have experience on this subject matter, or Ms. Jackson wants to talk about it, the commissioner. But my thing is, Mr. Chairman, this is a program that we certainly need to talk about under reconciliation, increasing the amount of money into this program for vouchers, and actually double the program. And then extend the time period where people will be able to access the program. And further, Mr. Chairman, communicate that, because a lot of these programs, unfortunately, our citizens don't know when they are available. And I've had and I've experienced this in our office firsthand, where it says, who made up that dumb idea to have a program open up in October and close in December? And when we need to have the paint program, and this is no offense to anyone else, this is just what was said.
You just called it a dumb idea.
It's quote unquote. So I'm just quoting what what the residents saying. It's not me. So I told him, I don't know who made that decision. It makes sense to me logically that if we're going to talk about fixing and repairing homes is usually in the springtime. So I don't know why we have a limitation here. Well, Councilman Joe Jones, you better go find out now about it. And so at the end of the day, you know how our citizens push us around, Mr. Chairman. And so I ain't trying to push the commissioner or the director around. I just want to get a little bit more clarification. Can we increase this program? Can we extend it out so that we can really make a huge impact? Because if the need is there, you know, Mr. Chairman, I know we have the resources to increase this.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you won't be able to push this commissioner around. I tried that once and I got pushed out the window. So, so yeah, I mean, that's certainly a legitimate question to ask about increasing the program. What I would request, because I mean, this is just like many of our programs, you know, it's resource driven. I mean, we staff up to meet the need to use the resources we have. So if we have $1 million, we staff to spend $1 million, and we make sure that we can meet those program guidelines. And it's not like we're carrying money over each year for these programs. We're spending it down. In fact, we have a pretty great need. So if I can circle back very specifically, you're requesting to add additional funds on top of the $500,000. To the commissioner, at $500,000, how many clients were you looking to serve?
To the chair, about 500. That's our goal for 2021 this year, sir. And if we get to the point where we have a tracking system that every application that comes in is reduced against our budget, so we know where we are with every application. If we get close to a point where we are running out of funding, then we would have to go back to look at how we can bring in more funding. And this is general fund money. So if we actually get to a point where we are thinking that we're not going to have enough money, then I think that would be a good problem to have, to go back to say we need more. I think people are now getting accustomed to the paint program. So hopefully this year, if COVID does subside a bit, then we will see a greater number of applications. As I said, last year we had 874 that we got and was able to approve. The income guidelines for the paint program is 100% of median. That means one person can make $51,000 in order to participate in this program. So this is one program that the majority of the people that really wish to participate can participate. So if we get more, then the director is open to going back to say we need more general fund money. But we are able to do what we're doing with the paint program because this is general fund money.
Can we extend it, Mr. Chairman? Right now, what is the parameters of the dates? And then can we look to expend it so where it's actually coming in the spring portion of the year?
Well, the deadline for applications that's on the application is February 28th. And if we still have funding available, then we will extend it. And our timeline to get the vouchers out to the individuals so they can start prepping their home is March 15th. So we are open to extending it so that people can paint. That's last year nor this year has there been a restriction on that. But we're just trying to see where we are with funding and that we are not over committing.
So we open it up in September and then we close it in February. Am I hearing that right?
No, I don't. I'm not connecting the dot to those two dates, but when we start to redeem the vouchers. So if your voucher, you got a voucher, say in April to paint, and you have not finished painting, then we're looking to see when you're going to paint. But if you got a voucher in September, then we need you to paint because by the end of October, the painting season is over. You're into the winter months. And you have to, the outside has to be a certain temperature in order for the paint to adhere.
I guess what I'm trying to ask, just real quickly, Mr. Chairman, to the commissioner, your opening date for enrollment in the paint program starts when, and when does it close?
Well, it closes it started in January. And I don't have that date committed, so I'm gonna say around January the 15th, the middle. And the enrollment date ended, will end February the 28th for this new year.
So it ends February 28th.
And just a clarifying point, Councilman Jones, the commissioner stated it's not a firm end, it's an end based on number of applications. If we have far in excess applications and we have funding, then it's a cutoff. If we need more applications, then she'll roll it. If I heard that correctly, Commissioner?
Yes.
Is there a possibility if we could change that date, instead of having it for what appears to be a 30-day, maybe a 45-day period? Is that about right at this point? And then it could be extended if you don't have enough applicants, is what it sounds like. But it seems like you have a 45-day window here. Can we change that instead of having it in the months of January and February, bringing it more in line to the season, and the months of April or May?
To the chair, to the councilman, I think although the applications are out, we got 1,000 applications on the street now. So that date is on that application. So we are open to just continuing to accept applications. But next year, when we start the program again, then we'll look at those dates. So that would give you a longer time period.
Right. And then how would this impact you if you had more money? Because I know that the need in my neighborhood is great. We have 500 people in our neighborhood can get their house painted tomorrow, and then another 500 in the next month. So the need is really great for the paint program. And do we work with our local development corporation as partners? How do we get this disseminated information out to let the residents know about this paint program?
We work with the CDCs and we work with the community engagement specialists, and we put it on our website so that people can know about the paint program, so that we can start to get the applications in and people can start to respond back to us with the program. So right now we got 1,000 applications on the street. If we need more, we will print out more applications, but we are thinking that 500 of those individuals will reply back before February the 28th. And that'll let us know where we are. But we are open, sir, to extending the date. But right now, those applications are already printed and on the street.
Right. So Mr. Chairman, I would just say that we need to open this up in a way where, because a lot of our citizens, if it wasn't for me, and I know the director does the best working with her partners to get the information out, but we really have to do a better job in terms of letting the citizens know about these programs, how to get in there. And that would, in somewhat of a sense, mean that, and I'm not suggesting we should, but it's something that she should be looking at, or a department or the leaders in the department, is when we have these programs, we need to have the funds allocated also to market these programs to the citizens in the neighborhood. And just putting 1,000 applications down or 1,000 apps out, but not having something being mailed out or robocalled or some kind of massive communication outlet system, maybe on our city web pages are good, and I'm quite sure it's there as well. But being able to reach these people in a granular level, let them know about these programs, because oftentimes, Mr. Chairman, the citizens don't know what resources are made available to them. It's not until after the fact when they realize, oh, I didn't know that the open enrollment started in January and ended in February. So if we're able to get this information, expand that timeline, and increase this budget, I'm open for it, Mr. Chairman. And I'm open to the entertainment of any of the colleagues talking about, and I think that this should be a part of our reconciliation discussion and our caucus meeting that we will hold, that this would be one of those topic items. And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to close because I know you have a quite bit of agenda to get through for the rest of the day. I don't even want to touch the rest of the programs. I do know that paint program is really important to all of the citizens of the city of Cleveland, and we should make it accessible and make it and extend the period of time starting in the spring months and moving into the summer, where it's an open enrollment where people can have an opportunity to get this work done to their homes. And then I look forward to working with you, Commissioner, on some possibilities of how that could happen. And I don't mind working.
No one's going to outwork you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to finish the paint program. Councilwoman Spencer, do you have a comment on paint program?
I do. Thank you, Mr.
Great.
Chair.
Thank you.
This is my first block grant hearings. It's been fabulous. Thank you, everybody, for this rich dialogue this afternoon.
For anybody who comes out of the CDCs and then sits through a block grant hearing, they start twitching. So.
No, it's been great. I do have some specific questions through the chair to the commissioner about the paint program. So to follow up on my colleague, Councilman Joe Jones, his comments, I agree about timeframe. So timeframe, I think, needs deep consideration. So whether for this year's cycle or next year's cycle, Councilman Jones presented one possible change to timing. I still think that you can get the applications out earlier. I concur that 45 days is not a sufficient amount of time to release applications and get responses back without creating a tremendous amount of stress on residents. And so I think people who are in need are already, we know we're all in COVID. We know there's a lot of stressors in life. I think we just want to be as customer service friendly, I guess you could say, as possible. And to my colleagues, I'll give one example of marketing of the program. Most of you put out newsletters, thanks to council staff. We all have print newsletters that go out to every mailbox in our wards. Because mine was so late, I'm confessing publicly to being behind the 8 ball. I was able to put the paint program in mine. I literally, like 2 days before the deadline, was able to get that dropped in there because my newsletter went out so late. So I would say that's a good benchmark. When do council members put their winter newsletters out that go to every single mailbox in their wards? A lot of you put them out in December. So I would just say to our community development friends that we'd love to coordinate and make sure that residents have the best information possible in the most timely way. Through the chair to the commissioner, a few more paint program questions. One is, I've heard from some of my constituents that it would be helpful to have the information in Spanish. Is that still being worked on? What is the status of, if not this current application, then future applications being available in Spanish?
That is still being worked on. We're trying now for this present one to get it in Spanish.
Even though there are only right now 20 days left until the deadline.
We're trying. I know, I understand.
So my feedback with all due respect is, it sounds like this cycle that was not carried out effectively. And I would emphasize that that's very important for future application cycles to serve the community. Through the chair to the commissioner, this might be a little bit down in the weeds, but it's my understanding that Sherwin-Williams had been our partner on this program in the past, and that is no longer the case. And I do have some concern about that, and just because they're a Cleveland-based company, and wondering why is it that that is no longer proceeding with Sherwin-Williams.
The contract for 2020 with the paint provider ended. So now we're starting the process for the contract for the 2021 paint providers. Any paint vendor within the city of Cleveland is eligible to participate in the program. There are 2 steps. The first, you have to attend the meeting on how the program operates, and that meeting was held February the 5th of this month. And we had 4 vendors to participate in that first meeting, and then and Sherwin-Williams was one of them. And then the next step will be that every paint vendor that attended this first meeting will have to complete the documentation sent out to them by the Division of Purchasing so that the price can be established for the paint and primer and supply.
So at this point, what is the expected outcome in terms of how what kind of vendors residents will be working with?
And I don't want to name the 4 that attended, but Sherwin-Williams did attend. If they complete what purchasing provides to them and meet all of the requirements that's in the general fund ordinance, then they are able to participate in the program by receiving vouchers from an applicant to get their supplies and paint. And then they will invoice us on a monthly basis, and then they will be paid. So hopefully we will have this done by the first weekend in March.
Okay.
So there's a potential 4 vendors then?
Yes.
Or there's a potential no vendors? We just don't know yet.
We don't know yet, but I'm sure that they will return the information. I am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I just have a couple more questions through the chair to the commissioner regarding the paint program. One is I will echo the comments earlier. I think it was Councilman Hairston, the concern about lowering the cap from $1,500 to $600. In my experience, homes are too physically large you're just not going to get the amount of paint you need with $600. So I want to make sure I clarify this point that I believe it was kind of this idea of flexibility, but if the advertised cap is $600, when and where does that flexibility come into play? And then furthermore, if we're only doing $600 vouchers for 500 residents, that only gets us to $300,000 of the whole allocation. So it doesn't seem like that $600 cap is necessary. It's probably already gone out in your application materials, but I am concerned about that number, and it also just, the math doesn't add up.
The 600 is what we average, so that people will not be confused over the fact that they thought that they would have access to $1,500. You don't just get $1,500 worth of paint to do whatever you would like to do. You only get enough paint to paint the exterior of your home. So people were confused over how much they could get. So now with us going out earlier to actually make the determination if somebody's house is not larger, but would require more paint, then we would know that up front, and so would they. So the program is to paint the exterior of your home. If you get the paint and you decide to paint something else and not your home, then the program is not there for you to come back to get more paint. So we're trying to keep people focused on what the purpose of the program is, and that's to paint the exterior of their home. And we use the 600 because that's what we were averaging. So if a house does require more, then we would know that.
And then through the chair to the commissioner, how much more could be allocated if that assessment shows that more paint is needed?
The ordinance says $1,500. We can go up to $1,500. For owner occupants and $750 for units occupied by tenants.
Okay. Thank you. One final question through the chair to the commissioner. It's my understanding that our community engagement specialists through the Healthy Homes Initiative are really now looked at as part of the face of this program. They're doing a lot of the initial intake, or they may even be required. I'm sorry, I should know this cold, but they may be even required to be the intake point for paint program applications. And if that is the case, I would just suggest for future application cycles in terms of mitigating confusion or making sure that residents understand parameters of a program, we now have the benefit of these practitioners in the field. They know way more than I do. I don't care what position I hold, right? I'm not out every single day talking to residents. So I would just say going forward, in terms of an application that's clear, easy to understand, and also creates fewer barriers, I would say getting the feedback of those specialists would be probably beneficial. Because I'm just concerned about people feeling like a barrier has been thrown up rather than the program becoming more flexible. It appears less flexible. Unless
Now,
you happen to be watching TV 20 today or YouTube, you know that you know different.
Right. We had a meeting with we had a meeting to debrief as to what did they see out in the field and for 2020, so that they could add feedback into how we make changes going into 2021. Also had meetings with the internal staff within DNS for that same reason. What did they see from people calling in, and how do we make changes for 2021? And then we also had a meeting with the specialists to go over the requirements of the program for 2021. So we are trying to get everyone that's going to be engaged with providing disseminating information to people, because individuals are out in the field and people are asking questions. We want to get everybody, the people that are working out in the field and the people that are working in the office that are answering the telephones. And that would include my inspectors that are in my division and DNS, and also the community engagement specialists that are working from the CDC. So we are trying to make sure that we have enough information out there so people understand the requirements of the program and what they need to do, and that this is a voucher program only.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sure that feedback cycle will be very valuable going forward with every program cycle. Thank you, and I yield the floor, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Bashir Jones on the paint program.
So much, Chair. Chair to the Commissioner, you said 1,000. Were you saying that like jokingly, or were you saying there's 1,000 applications, literally 1,000 applications out there?
We printed 1,000 applications, and so they're out in various places.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. To the chair, I do want to have a clarification, even though the debate is over now, but that the motion that was made in the past is still on the table. Did you make a motion to hold it? What do we do with that motion?
There was a motion and a second, and we're holding it to vote on it until we get clarification from the law department.
Okay. So is that okay? So that's something that you're holding it, and we're waiting for the law department. And that doesn't have to be voted on. That doesn't have to be a motion for that. Anything like that?
We're not done. The meeting is not over. We still have 3 days of the meeting. We still have 3 days. We're not ending the meeting without taking a vote, because we still have 3 days of meeting. The notion is that we would have clarification before we vote on the ordinance.
So you made a motion to hold it, correct?
No, there's no motion needed. I am holding it as the chair until we get clarification from the law department.
What do we, Mr. Chairman, on that point for clarification?
No need to have additional point. I made the point. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, on the point of legal advice.
No, yeah, we're putting the request in, and that's what I had stated.
Right, Mr. Chairman, I got that. For the remaining of the sessions that we're having, Mr. Chairman, can we get a person from the law department to get on during these hearings? Because some of the requests that we're making are requests like the changing of the cap is in total discretion of the administration to have that. There has been a motion properly put on the floor according to our rules of city council, as well as to Robert Rules of Order. And so, Mr. Chairman, we certainly need to have a legal attorney on the piece right now. Otherwise would be circumventing the very legal system put in place for the minority to have a voice. And that's
I will put that request in.
so
I'll
that
put that request
minority
in.
members who feel that they're not getting their voices heard, they have Robert Rules of Order and other tools to be able to amplify the needs.
Thank you. I will put that request in. Thank you.
I know, as a DPS member, now maybe you're doing that to him because he's not a DPS member.
No, there's no need to go over the same stuff. We're moving forward. We have a path to get that heard.
There's no vote that's needed. Is that what you're saying? That you can hold it without no vote? Is that what you're saying?
We will call the vote when I get the ruling from the law department. I just want a clarification. That was raised during the discussion.
So there's no motion that you need to do to hold it.
No
motion. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Well, he's just tabling it for now, is my understanding, Mr. Chairman, until you get legal correspondence.
I'm not tabling it. I don't know. I'm holding it to get a ruling from the law department.
That you're just holding it so that we don't talk about it and we don't deal with it. That's what it comes across to me when you say just forget about it.
So as you heard me state,
for my ignorance, I just need for you to explain it. That's all. I don't.
As you heard me state that I will not move this ordinance until we get clarification.
Simple. I just need you to explain it. That's all. Be patient.
Okay.
Patience.
Councilman Jones, any more on the paint program?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just.
No, not Councilman Bashir Jones, no. Councilman Bashir Jones.
I yield to Councilman Joe Jones if he has something he wants to say.
Councilman Joe Jones, did you have a point on this?
Thing mute, so I don't know who's doing it on the other side, but they're really pushing mute pretty hard. So I guess the issue is that, Mr. Chairman, you know, and I know we're like in a space here, a center space, because the council hasn't pushed like this before. My clarification was having, as we move forward, because there's other items on this agenda that I would like to make a motion of, but I need to have clarity for two things. The first is that we have a legal attorney online for those members who need that, right? I don't need it. And for the members who need to understand parliamentary process, I don't need that neither. I already know what the rules are and how we're supposed to proceed in this process. So my question would be, Mr. Chairman, as having their attorney online is really important, you know, so that they can be that second person that says, hey man, what you're saying, what you're doing is proper and correct. And then two, I need clarification, Mr. Chairman, as all of these committees, meetings and sessions that have been open for budget processes have always been of the body of the whole. The committee of the whole sits at these tables and discuss the entire budget. So this is the first time that I've heard called in question that a sitting council member of the committee of whole cannot vote on a subject matter if it's deposed in one section or one department. That has never happened before. So would definitely like to see the clarification of understanding that. As a sitting body, as a member in good standing, I should be able to make any amendments at any time and as well as to vote on subject matters or to talk about or discuss issues. So having a clarification there, Mr. Chairman, is really critical as we move forward. The voting right and the power of an elected office holder and a body of whole budget hearing process.
Heard loud and clear, Councilman Joe Jones. We will follow up.
So,
Councilman Bashir Jones, you have the floor.
Sure. So just for point of clarity, because there's a lot of things that we're bringing to the table. A lot of my colleagues have brought different things to the table that, you know, that we're looking to be voted on or be amended. So all of the day, kind of I'm just trying to understand kind of what are you planning to do with that?
You're breaking up, but I think what I heard you were asking the next step. Yeah, the next step.
I was saying that that my colleagues and I, many of us are having certain issues that we're bringing up. I myself have motioned for an amendment. There are issues that we're having. I guess my question is, at what point are we waiting for the law? Will law be here tomorrow? Will it be another day? when, like, I'm just trying to understand time-wise, when will it be addressed? Because I would hate for us to move this along and none of this stuff is addressed.
So Joe Titron has already sent a request to the law department to get clarification on both voting as well as on the vote itself on policy. And we'll put a request in to have somebody from the law department present during the committee meeting. So we hope to hear from them tomorrow on that, on all those issues.
But I would hate for us to have a long day tomorrow too, because I'm going to keep on bringing this up until we handle it. So
Absolutely.
just to let you know.
Absolutely. Okay. The commissioner on the paint program. So you mentioned that we had 874 approved applications in 2020.
Yes, to the chair.
So how many of those applications completed the painting, closed out? Well, let me, and just so we can move along, the series of questions is how many people were closed out, how many people partially painted, so that what are the buckets that we have? We have application approved, we have folks who had gone through the video training, we have folks who were, the houses were inspected and approved to be painted. We have folks who were given the voucher for the supplies, because that's the first voucher of supplies, correct?
To the chair, because of COVID, they received a voucher for both the supplies and the paint at the same time.
And then, so then we had folks who did not complete timely, and then folks who completed. Those are kind of the buckets that we have.
To the chair, yes.
And so so can you get to us kind of because I did get the last list that you provided, which was everybody that was approved. If you can get to us for the folks who approved and did not get a voucher, are they going on can they go on the 2021 list and reapply, or can their application hold?
To the chair, the goal is that the application will hold.
Okay, so can you, when you give us that list of that 874 that were approved, those that can still utilize the program in 2021? So it's kind of like, because there's a number of folks who had their first inspection but never got a voucher. So I guess so we might have to do this as a separate session, but I mean, those are a lot of checkpoints, and I suspect you have in a spreadsheet somewhere. I know you guys had switched program managers mid-year. So Tina's no longer there now. It's Donna that's there as the program manager.
Donna is the intake specialist. We are hiring a manager.
Where do I put my application in for that?
For the paint program?
No, for the job. So we don't have a program manager at this point.
That would be correct, sir.
Okay, so the program manager right now, the last name of the program manager is Jackson.
That would be correct, sir.
We all see those different hats everybody wears. I wasn't going to say whackers because I know that'll get me in trouble. So if we can get those list of different, I mean, do you have a flow chart of the process that you can share? Because I know Councilwoman Spencer loves flow charts and process. She's a very process-oriented person. That would be very helpful of the time of application, the review of the application to confirm that they're qualified, because many of the applications come in through the CDCs, which have already done some of that, and you're just confirming that the information that they have is true and accurate. And because we're talking about a volume that exceeds the amount of money that we have right now, unless Councilman Joe Jones is able to move another 500,000 there. So the, for those for those who have closed out, can you give the amount spent on that house? Because you talked about the average was $600 or something. For some reason, I thought it was a lot more based on the houses that were completed in Slavic Village and in Old Brooklyn in my wards. And when you have that number for the house, the dollar amount completed, would you know whether it was just trim or porches or whether it was the whole house?
I think we can look in the system that the inspectors complete to tell whether it was whole house or whether it was trim, just because it would have been brick if it was just trim, or it would have been vinyl or aluminum siding if it's just trim. I think we can find that out. And yes, we can give you the amount spent on each house.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that would be helpful, just because, I mean, I know you lowered the threshold kind of publicly, but the issue is, and then it's great to hear that you say that we still can go up to $1,500 per house if people have to come back, because even though my 1,300 square foot house I live in is may take a lot more paint than the 1,300 square foot house in Old Brooklyn, because it's a newer house and doesn't have the same, it's not going to absorb the paint at the same level as some of these other houses. The age and typology of the house also dictates on how much paint is going to be used, as you stated earlier, when you have houses that are down to the bare wood. But you did mention that by ordinance, you can go up to $1,500 for homeowners and $750 for landlords.
Yes.
So that's by ordinance?
Yes.
And what ordinance was that?
I can get you the number. I don't have it sitting right
Okay,
here in
I'd be
front of me.
curious. Yeah. Okay.
It's
So,
in the ordinance.
Okay. So if you can get that would be good. Because I'm concerned about this, the new cap, which is $600. And I would really have a concern about having a cap of $400 for rental, because you just can't get enough paint on a house. The whole idea of this Healthy Homes Initiative is to make the home safe, and there's keep going back and forth on this presumption that every landlord can afford everything. It's going to be a tough year for landlords as much as it is for tenants and homeowners. And making homes safe is the priority, as you mentioned earlier. So for those who had redeemed their vouchers but didn't finish painting, that's going to be part of your categories of people who can come back and finish for this year.
Correct.
Okay. So again, it's good to know. I mean, we're putting this cap of 600, but we can go up to $1,500 if the house needs it, and that's going to be based on the inspectors going out and confirming that they use their 5 gallons of paint. Because the inspectors, the community engagement officers don't know, or not officers, I just made a police officer, sorry. Community engagement specialists don't know how much has been spent. They don't see that, they give information to you on kind of clearances and whether or not they're practicing safe policies, but they don't see the dollars amount. So they don't know whether somebody's gone over or not gone over. That's really internal to the city only.
Correct.
So it'd be helpful to make sure that, the community engagement specialists can go out there and say, okay, we're probably gonna need a few more gallons. Let's not leave the house undone. Let's make sure we get it done. So that's a critical point, to make sure we don't leave houses undone and that people don't walk away. And I know there was a lot of push for color selection to make sure. I think, what did you guys word it as, punishment colors? a punishment color to me is, may be different than a color to Commissioner Anderson, but we want to make sure that the landlords and the tenants all get along, and we get houses that get paint on them. So those were most of the questions I have. So you're going to get that information back to us. The one other point that got raised around the COVID, and I think Councilwoman Spencer may have raised it a little bit about just the demand of families during COVID. The safe practices is a virtual video now, correct?
Yes.
So the families can watch that video pretty much anywhere, at any time, to make sure that they check the boxes appropriately. We want people to paint safe. They need to see the video. They need to check the box that they did see the video and are going to practice safe practices. So when the community engagement officers go back out there, they can say, that you should be putting the plastic down. You should know, you should be doing this or that.
In 2020, Chairman, we left it to the each individual applicant to do that. And I will not go into some of the, I don't want to use the word horror. I don't, but I will not go into all of the things that we found because people don't know how to paint. You would think that is something that we all know how to do. If you looked at a video, it would certainly guide you. But this time, the virtual training will be with an individual, meaning if we'll do a Zoom training and maybe 20 people will attend so that they can actually have they can ask us questions as to what they should do, what they cannot do, and if they want to change the color, what will happen if they have a really deep blue house and they want to go white, or if they want to start to paint patterns on their houses and all kinds of things. So
right.
So we need to really have this conversation with people so that they can we're not looking for perfect paint jobs by no means, because these are individuals that are doing some of this painting themselves. But we want them to understand that priming your house is really key if you want to pay less for the paint that you're getting. And so we have to walk through some of the issues that people don't really know the answers to, and they don't watch the video.
Yeah, and watching the video is certainly helpful, but Councilwoman Santana can tell you, kids who are watching videos can also be playing Dungeons and Dragons. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're engaged. And Councilman Mooney can tell you, as an attorney, making a law for the worst case is probably the worst law. So trying to get people as holistically as we can, knowing that there's going to be some folks that are going to take a lot more hand-holding and a lot more pressure to do the right thing. I just being flexible during the pandemic and having the availability for people to go see the video, because not every family has access to technology to be able to do that. I think that's kind of an important point to make sure we hit that. When do you, I know there's a lot of touch points for our community engagement specialists, and not having a program manager is going to probably make that harder, because when I see applications that are sent in and a first inspection submitted, but no follow-up after, those are kind of important that we have a point person to do that follow-up. So hopefully we can get a manager on soon, since we have a backlog of applications. And when you send that to me, we'll have a better opportunity to dissect because even though you have 1,000 applications on the street, it sounds like you're going to have a few hundred applications that are ready to go based on what didn't get done from last year. And then we're going to have a carryover of applications of folks that are still approved from last year that don't need to apply again, but will be in the program again.
Yes.
I think those are most of the questions that I have. I got 5 pages of notes now of different, because we were all over on the meeting, I apologize. So we got the lead safe videos, more paint, and certainly the $1 million question is, or the $500,000 question is, who the vendor is going to be. All right, so yeah, I think those are most of the questions. Once I get that list from you, when do you think you might be able to have that? I'm not expecting by 6 o'clock tonight, but.
Really? I'll try to have it by Thursday.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you know, sometime during the budget hearings.
Yeah.
I know the paint program is part of the general fund budget. And I probably should have asked this question up front because we keep talking about the community engagement specialist. They're paid out of general fund. And I am not going to presume what the council president's going to happen in the general fund, but I am going to presume that your department has put in for funding to keep those community engagement specialists in the budget for this coming year.
Yes, we have.
Okay, and then of course the $500,000 you talked about, and I know Jenny did Councilwoman Spencer did the math on the back of a napkin, but you know, 500 applicants comes up to $1,000 per. So it does appear that we'll have enough money that if we do overspend on a house, we can do that. And because we'll have more applications in the pool than we have resources at the current time, that we'll be able to potentially serve more as we're rolling into this program. And certainly the importance of being able to have that manager on board to be able to have this running list. And now that you guys have worked out every single possible kink in the system in 2020, 2021 is going to be smooth as Sherwin-Williams emerald paint that doesn't need primer. You can put it on in one coat. So do I have any more questions on the paint program before we go?
Just very briefly, Mr. Chair, just I know that Ms. Commissioner Jackson said that you guys are doing it, doing classes for it. We do also have the Environmental Health Watch or the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition, and they're doing RRP training too. The reason that I asked that is because a lot of people, to your point, Commissioner Jackson is right, that a lot of people don't know how to do RRP certified painting. So are the people who they're getting to, are they being referred to RRP certified, or do you teach them RRP certified with the class you're teaching?
We will, my assistant chief is RRP certified. So we're teaching RRP certified, and we're using EPA's training videos, and we're using other training videos. So we create the wheel, but we are also referring people that need a contractor to EHW, so that those that are paying for their contractor, paying for their labor, that they will get a contractor that knows what they are doing, knows how to prep a house, knows how to work lead safe, knows how not to create a lead hazard. So we are using EHW for that also.
Okay, great. And that's what I was looking to hear, because I'm working closely with EHW to try to rope Sherwin-Williams in on some things and doing some other things. And I just like to make sure we're all complimenting each other, okay?
Okay. Well, we really enjoyed Sherwin-Williams as a partner. Sherwin-Williams came in very low last time with the cost of their paint, and that saved us some money also.
Well, I got some thoughts about that, Mr. Chairman. I think that we've been very generous with Sherwin-Williams, and at the right time, I would help you and others, because I don't think we're giving them as much of a break as much as they could be working with us. Let me just say that, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Griffin, you raised a point around Environmental Health Watch and some of the issues that we are facing. Because right now the paint program, you know, a year ago didn't allow us to paint porches. Now it allows us to paint porches. When we're trying to lower the lead exposure level, the program doesn't allow us to paint. The guidelines that the city has put in doesn't allow us to paint garages. The garages have been cited many times as a source of lead. So, you know, that does raise concerns about, you know, being comprehensive, that we don't put folks in a jackpot thinking they're lead safe when they're not lead safe if we're not painting garages or sheds. Councilwoman Santana, you have your hand up?
Yes. Could you hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay, I'll be brief. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the commissioner, just wondering, are paint program applications mailed to residents that have been cited for chip paint?
Ooh, tough question.
That is that's a very good.
Good question, but tough. I don't think you can answer that one.
Well, I know that we're not mailing them out, but we can look into how we could get the list of people who have been issued violation notices. That would be something I have to research because
Director Wackers?
okay.
I believe we've informed Building and Housing. They're aware of our program and their inspectors may be informing people to reach out to us.
And Councilwoman Santana, if I can add one more level, do we mail out applications to folks with children who have elevated lead levels?
If you have an elevated blood lead level, you have to go through the lead hazard program. You can't get a paint voucher.
Oh.
There's a question that says, is there a child in the home under the age of 6 that has been tested for lead within the last 6 months? If they say yes, and then we asked, was there an elevated blood lead level, then they were referred directly to the lead hazard control program. And then we will do the screening with the lead.
Councilwoman Santana, you have the floor.
Yeah, so through the chair to the commissioner, or Mr. Wackers, if we could confirm that, applications are being mailed out to people that are maybe like on the cusp of going to housing corps or, being cited with chip paint. I know I received a few residents, they weren't aware of the program. So we were able to share that application, but I'm sure there's many out there that could benefit from this resource.
Yes, certainly we'll look into it.
And I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've exhausted all of the questions on the paint program. So let's let that paint dry on that one for a while and move on to the next topic. Director, I don't even know what the next topic is. I'm going through your
We have
book.
Healthy Homes Initiative. I would like to ask just a point of order about time. It's 4 o'clock. Are we going to run for another hour? Is that our intention?
The program is scheduled to go to 4:30. We have not done the Housing Trust Fund, the Choto, the Model Block, or the Middle Neighborhoods either. So I think if we get through the Healthy Homes Initiative, we can push those other topics to the next day. If we get through the Healthy, I don't want to lose all of my council members and colleagues.
Sure.
We haven't touched the afternoon session yet.
All right.
So let's get. It's your call, Director. Let's get through the Healthy Homes Initiative, and then go from there.
Sounds good.
I got two senior citizen dogs that are barking here, so.
You need no introduction. I think you can take it from here.
I'm happy to present some other time. I'm just kidding. Let me just pull up my PowerPoint. Oh, it says that I'm not able to share my screen. Oh, okay.
Oh, you must be on the subversive list. Did you get that PowerPoint to us in advance?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilman Brancatelli?
Yes.
If we could just also make sure that City Council knows that the write-up on this program was left out of the book and the PDF. Unfortunately, I don't know if Council had time to upload these sheets. And apologies again to Nina and to City Council for not getting that information out to you ahead of this session, but we will make sure that the information is provided to City Council as part of the permanent record.
Okay, thank you. So Joe Titron, you did put this in our Dropbox?
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay, thank you.
Are we good? Can I start? Okay, I'll try to be fast, though I might need 15, 20 minutes. So I'll try not to go all the way to 4:30, but good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nina Holzer. I'm the program manager with the Community Engagement Healthy Homes Initiative. Thank you again for having me. I know we've referenced the Healthy Homes Initiative a number of times today, so I'm excited to talk about our work over the last year. And I'm working off of multiple screens, so I apologize if I'm going back and forth. So the Community Engagement Healthy Homes Initiative is a partnership between the City of Cleveland and community development corporations that seeks to improve the quality of life of residents through the enhancements to the city's housing stock. And I know I've presented on the program before, but do a little bit of table setting with the first couple of slides. So the ordinance for the Healthy Homes Initiative was first passed in 2019 with an allocation out of the city's general fund budget. This funding is used for professional services contracts with community development corporations. So the Department of Community Development first spent 2019 hiring a program manager. I won't talk about myself in the third person. And then we spent the summer and fall really building out the policies and procedures for the Healthy Homes Initiative. We identified CDC partners, set up contracts, and then began hiring community engagement specialists in late 2019, early 2020. So as of January 2020, we had hired 14 community engagement specialists. We spent our first month together as a cohort in training with the Department of Community Development, the Department of Aging, the Department of Building and Housing, Public Health, and then Case Western Reserve University, because we use the NST data system for some of our tracking. And so we really kicked off most of our work in February of 2020. And as is noted on the slide, our specialists are neighborhood based, and I want to emphasize that they are CDC employees, they're not city employees. They work out of their CDCs with homeowners, tenants, and landlords to resolve housing issues and other quality of life concerns. Their work is really focused on building those relationships with residents and property owners, helping them navigate the programs and services that exist inside and outside of City Hall, and then advocating for our residents as they're working to get into programs and then ultimately making home improvements. So digging a little bit deeper into how their work is structured. So first and foremost, our specialists collect property condition data through a structured routine housing survey. The goal is that they will go out and survey every residential parcel in their service area over the course of 4 years. So they have year 1, year 2, year 3, and then year 4 target areas. And I'll talk about it in my accomplishments. We're just rounding out year 1 target areas. So they'll go out, survey all those residential structures. Another component of their work is outreaching to property owners and tenants. Pre-pandemic, this would have been much more face-to-face, but right now we're focused on door knocking, letters, phone calls, emails, participating in virtual meetings, trying to find any pathway for outreaching and connecting with residents, and then educating folks on our housing survey findings. Then making those referrals to programs and services. As I said, supporting our property owners and tenants through application process and intake. And that could be, you know, printing out an application, delivering an application, making sure residents fully understand the eligibility criteria for an application. So doing a lot more of that hand holding. And I said this in the past, moving away from that passive referral model where we just hand someone an application or a flyer and say good luck. We're really trying to meet people where they are and help them as they're applying for programs and getting into programs that they would ideally and hopefully are going to be eligible for based on that relationship building they've been doing. We also work with the Department of Building and Housing. So we know code enforcement is a tool that sometimes we need to tap for properties that are really distressed, our nuisance properties or our properties that have major health and safety issues. We track our properties through compliance. So that could either be getting into a program and trying to track a resident or a property as they're getting through a program, or tracking to compliance through that building and housing court process. Our specialists also host trainings and workshops for residents, again, virtually right now, though hopefully we'll get back to a point where those could be more face-to-face. And then, as mentioned in Commissioner Jackson's presentation, we also help with the implementation of the city's exterior paint program by both marketing, recruiting residents for the program, helping folks complete and submit applications, and then providing all relevant inspections up until the lead clearance at the end. My next slide is our map. So as I noted on my first slide, we started off by hiring community engagement specialists. As you'll see, sorry, there's a little bit of background noise. As I noted on my first slide, we did start off by hiring 14 community engagement specialists, but you'll see on this map that we were able to grow our team to 15 community engagement specialists last year after some retooling of the budget. So we are really excited to bring on that additional capacity and additional community engagement specialists. And while I believe most of our council members have already connected with their specialists and should be aware of their contact information, if you'd like, I'm happy to follow up with anyone after this meeting and make that connection if you don't already have the contact information for your community engagement specialists or the community engagement specialist working in the CDC that overlaps with your ward. And I apologize if I'm moving very fast. I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions. So digging into our year one accomplishments. So per our contract with each CDC, every specialist is to survey 2,000 residential parcels per year. I have 28,000 parcels listed for 2020, even though we have 15 community engagement specialists, because that 15 specialists wasn't hired until much later in the year. So 28 was our goal for 2020. So as you see, based off our most recent records from accomplishments submitted to date, the specialists have surveyed 20,698 parcels, but I'm still waiting on a couple of reimbursement requests. It's through those CDC monthly reimbursement forms that I'm able to transcribe accomplishments. So that number will hopefully likely go up. But based on my records to date, we've surveyed about 20,698 parcels. When we go out and survey, we're conducting a windshield or a sidewalk survey. So we're cataloging what we can see from the streets. Our specialists don't go onto onto their properties. It's only a sidewalk or windshield survey. And then based off what we can see, we categorize properties as either having no violations, minor violations, or major violations. And those categories were created in conjunction with the Department of Building and Housing. So based off of what we've collected so far, we found that there were 12,190 parcels with no violations, 5,142 with minor violations. So again, that could be peeling paint or a hanging gutter, issues that are minor but could potentially lead to more major issues if not addressed. And then 548 parcels flagged as having major violations. So those are properties that could be open, vacant, vandalized, in need of board up, a hole in a roof, properties with major health and safety issues that would be a problem for someone living in the parcel or for adjacent parcels. Additionally, we've provided approximately 1,500 first and second inspections for the paint program. And then finally, our specialists, also different CDCs have different surveys that they're also implementing concurrently. So a number of our specialists also have some additional parcels that they've gone out and surveyed that may be outside of their target areas, but they're still tracking. So that's where that 1,300 number comes from. Finally, for referrals to building and housing through our tracking form. So you see that number 72. So again, while the bulk of our work is really focused on outreach and engagement, on getting residents into programs and services. Sometimes, again, code enforcement is a tool that's used for distressed properties. Back in August, I worked with the Department of Building and Housing on the creation of a specialist referral form to more efficiently refer properties to the Department of Building and Housing. Since that form was created in August, we've referred 72 2 properties. And again, these parcels are those OVV parcels that need to be boarded up. And there are those parcels that could potentially be condemned if they're not already on the condemned list. And we try not to refer occupied parcels, though, as I mentioned, if there is a major health and safety issue that threatens the person living within the home or adjacent parcels, on occasion, we do refer occupied parcels, but we really try to focus primarily on vacant parcels when we're referring to building and housing. So overall, we're just at about 74% of our program goal for the year. A few explanations for that number. First, for a number, we really didn't get kicked off with the work until later in Q1 of last year. So there was a little bit of a delay as our specialists were getting acclimated to their CDCs and service areas. Many of them didn't really start serving until February. And so just as they were really starting to get their groove, March hits, we have shutdowns. And so there was a little bit of a delay in getting up and running. Additionally, I had one CDC where there was some staff turnover. And as I mentioned, for our other specialists, they didn't start until later in the year. So there was a little bit of delays, and there was some expectation around us being below our goal number for the year. And obviously with the pandemic, a number of our specialists, and I'll talk about this a little bit when I get to referrals, pivoted more towards pandemic response. So that impacted some of our surveying in the middle of the year, especially between March and June. A number of them pivoted more towards PPE distribution and outreach. I did put together this map, and I apologize, it's probably very small in PowerPoint form. I do believe it was, it should have been distributed with the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm happy to provide a map that's more relevant towards, right now the map shows parcels surveyed by specialist service area, and I know that those specialist service areas don't always align with council wards. So again, I'm happy to retool it however we need to, but for now, this is just a quick visual to show parcels that we've gone out and surveyed. And I know with the light gray background, some of those yellow parcels disappear. So there might be, you might have to zoom in on the map if you're on a computer to be able to see some of those parcels. But I can provide this map in other formats if that's helpful as well. Moving along to referrals, I know we've been talking a lot about referrals today, so I feel like this is probably pretty relevant to our conversation. Internally, we're still working on the best way to track and report out on referrals made. I'm also working on developing a system for tracking the referral outcomes. So especially for those referrals that are made to City Hall programs and services. For now, this slide just highlights the programs that we refer to the most. And so you can see that there are a number of programs here that are city programs: the exterior paint program, SHAP, RA, Age Friendly, HWAP. I also believe the sidewalk repair program. There are also, because we know that based on our conversation earlier, there are not always programs, or not everyone is going to qualify for programs within City Hall. So we also look at programs outside of City Hall. We refer to Hebrew Free Loan, Heritage Home Program, the County Housing Enhancement Loan Program. A number of our CDCs have their own in-house home repair programs that they refer people to. We're also, what we found is that there are a number of seniors who would qualify for the property tax exemption, and they have not filled out that paperwork yet. So our specialists help seniors connect to that property tax exemption application. And then finally at the bottom, as I previously mentioned, we did pivot more towards connecting folks to CARES Act funded programs, especially in the middle of the year and late in the year, that being primarily rent and utility assistance, senior social services, food delivery, and transportation services. So a bulk of our referrals recently have been, or I shouldn't say recently, towards the middle, towards the end of the, to the end of the year, were really for those CARES Act funded programs. I did want to add too, that I feel like our housing survey referral data are important to look at, obviously, but I feel like only paints one picture of all the work that our specialists do. I have specialists who are spending all of their additional time working with a homeowner or a senior to understand the programs that exist, you know, understand what they're applying for, helping them complete those applications, really walking them through a process. And that takes a lot of time. And I think if we look at the referral numbers alone, it really flattens the amount of relationship building and work that our specialists do to help connect residents to programs and services that they might qualify for. They're also doing that work of coming up with plans and trying to peel back those layers. Let me help you address the tax issues so that you can get into these other programs. And so they're working very comprehensively with residents. And I just wanted to share that because I think sometimes the data doesn't paint a full picture of everything that they're doing when it comes especially to that case management and building out those more comprehensive plans when they're working with residents and trying to make more qualified, appropriate referrals. In terms of our year 2 focus areas, so for our specialists, again, because we still have some housing surveys to complete in year 1, they're going to be rounding out their year 1 housing surveys and then getting into their year 2 target areas and beginning those property condition surveys in their year 2 target areas. Again, continuing to work on resident engagement. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we'll be post-pandemic and we'll be able to get back to face-to-face engagement, though right now they're looking for any pathway to connect with folks, be it virtually or at a safe distance. As I mentioned, they'll be helping with the implementation of the 2020 exterior paint program. And finally, Councilman Griffin brought up the Lead Safe Coalition. We are trying to sync up our efforts with the outreach and engagement activities of the Lead Safe Coalition, educating landlords on the certificate system, making referrals to the resource center and those programs or those products that they're putting out on the street. So we are trying to sync up our efforts there as well, especially as the certificate system rolls out this year. And then ending the presentation with me, because why shouldn't I? My focus areas for my own work in year 2, my plan is to continue to review data collected over the last year to dig in and better identify housing issues and referral trends. As I previously noted, also trying to develop a more improved process for tracking referral outcomes. So digging into our building and housing referrals and beyond just the referral, what was the outcome in building and housing or for a program, especially City Hall programs? Are we seeing people that are referred to programs through HHI get into programs in City Hall? Continue to work with our CDCs on reimbursement reporting and refining our accomplishments reporting to better and more fully capture the work of our specialists. A big bulk of my work is hosting monthly cohort meetings for our specialists for ongoing learning and training. And so putting together those agendas, making sure we have outside presenters come in and really educate our specialists about the ins and outs of their programs and services or things that are on the horizon. So we do host those monthly meetings, and putting together those agendas and making sure that we're meeting the learning needs of our specialists is a big bulk of my work. Another focus area is working with internal and external partners to continue to align our work with other outreach efforts in neighborhoods. So for example, this past year, I worked with Chief Martin Thompson's social work team. So they joined one of our cohort meetings and we talked about how we can best sync up our efforts with the work of the neighborhood rec centers. And I think my second to last point might be echoes of the broader conversation that's been happening around referral gaps. So as we're getting referral information from the community engagement specialist accomplishments, digging into the referral data to get a better sense of referral gaps or gaps in programs and the gaps in the programs and services ecosystem. And working with partners to better fill those gaps. I hear it from specialists too. I'm trying to make a referral and I'm not sure where I could refer someone who's just over income or someone who's not a senior. So where can we turn people to? And so we talk about that a lot in Healthy Homes. And so filling those gaps identifying and filling those gaps is definitely something that we've been talking about. Finally, marketing and better marketing the program. So telling our story, building awareness so that more residents are knowledgeable about the program and know that they could reach out to their healthy home specialists so that we can reach even more folks in our neighborhoods. So that's also a focus of this year. And with that, I know I went through that very fast because I didn't want to go all the way to 4:30. I am happy to take questions. And I can also go back and review anything that I went through too fast.
Thank you, Nina. I just want to echo the amazing work that your community engagement specialists have done out there during the pandemic. It's just pretty exciting to see how they just rolled up their sleeves and adapted to the environment that they were in. I can speak certainly to the CESs that I deal with between Lynn, Marissa, Leah, that they've just not just taken. When you talk about leverage, they've gone out and raised a heck of a lot more money than what we've put into the system in terms of passing out PPEs and pandemic supplies. And I had shown Council President Kelly and others I don't know if I have one easily available to me. Council, I know our 4 colleagues in the Broadway community, Councilman Cleveland, Griffin, and Bishop have seen these little, boxes that they pass out as if they're, I say Amazon gift boxes, but then Lynn gets mad at me. But they're really kind of a cool box that has PPEs, hand sanitizers, thermometers, but more importantly, program information. Folks aren't going to read what we put in the mail that comes from a government official, but when they get a little gift box left at their door, that they say, "Oh, great, we can get questionnaires and find out their food insecurities if they have need of food and so on." But those folks have really stepped up, and it's just been an amazing program during the most difficult time. So I didn't want to pass on that, but also wanted to emphasize that your involvement with the 10-year housing plan and the study work that's being done. What's being done on the street level and the boots on the ground really plays an important part on having an impact on our 10-year housing plan. So I don't know if you wanted to share any more information on that. It's a little off the healthy homes, but speaks to your healthy home stewards that are out there.
To the chair, I don't want to speak broadly about the 10-year housing plan. I can say that our community engagement specialists did participate in a focus group with the team. So they were able to provide their feedback based on their experience in working in our neighborhoods. And a number of our community engagement specialists are also City of Cleveland residents. So both from a personal and professional, sharing their experience and feedback on how the home repair ecosystem could be improved, or what gaps they're seeing, what challenges, what opportunities they're seeing in neighborhoods. So we did hold that focus group. And then I know a number of our community engagement specialists work to advertise the public meetings that were held within this a few weeks ago. Time doesn't exist anymore, within the last few weeks. So definitely trying to get as many resident voices a part of that process as well.
Yep, that's great. I have a Councilman Joe Jones and Councilwoman Spencer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In our budget book, what page is the budget for community engagement healthy home initiative?
Yes,
it is not in our budget book. It's in the general fund. This was funded out of the general fund.
Okay, so all right. So we put it over here, but we don't have. So the question would be, what's the budget for it currently?
So broadly, it's $1 million line item from the general fund, largely to pay for the community engagement specialists and our manager for the program within the department. And there's also additional technology, I believe, aspects of the program as well.
And how much is that, Mr. Chairman, in terms of technology?
Through the chair, Nina, you want to touch on that?
Through the chair to the councilman. So the bulk of our budget, like the director said, goes towards those professional services contracts with CDCs. I believe that we have 15 or 18,000 built into the budget to fund the Case Western Reserve NST system, which is where we do a bulk of our property research for follow-up with residents. And also, I know a number of our specialists do their reporting through the NST system, as well as tracking the B&H side of referrals.
I see. So basically, the data that you're extrapolating out of the program currently with the various different home initiative engagement officers in the neighborhood, that data and that information goes or is being shared with Cleveland State University?
Through the chair to the councilman with Case Western Reserve University.
With Case Western Reserve University. And is that program, is that something that's accessible where council members can take a look at what's happening and what's going on?
Yeah, Councilman, yes, we have access to NST, and we had a presentation on it to our colleagues. Joe, I forget when we had that, but we can do that again. We actually had some special training for our executive assistants that we offered out. And I know some of the folks have gone through some of our EAs have gone through the training as well. So we do have access to it.
Okay, great. And Mr. Chairman, that is access that we can get on either our smartphones or our tablets. And we have access at all times. Okay,
It's on
great.
every app. It's pretty much on every platform except Apple IIc. That's what I was trained on.
Okay. All right. So now you made me laugh quite a bit today.
Yeah. Nina wasn't around when Apple IIcs were invented, so she has no idea what I'm talking about.
What is that?
I already got corrected, but I made a reference to Dungeons and Dragons, and that's old school too, because now it's Fortnite. So another dated reference.
Mr. Chair, that's like saying that you had a DOS system. If there's a DOS system.
Oh, that was good. So here, Mrs. Let me collect myself. Mrs. Holzer, I just want to say that, I do have the gentleman that's in my neighborhood is doing a good job in this program. And I do like the fact that your program is linking with all the various different programs that we have, and it sounds like you're even linked with even outside other programs that may not be listed here in your accomplished piece.
Through the chair to the councilman. So we do try to build those relationships with service providers outside of City Hall as well. So I know there's some programs that we built more of a relationship than others, but we do actively try to bring other program providers in to educate our specialists and to explore those collaborative opportunities so that we can continue to make the best referrals possible.
And then the other thing that is exciting for me just to see this, because my mind is going into like 200 different directions about how we can even step this up into a whole different ball game. But I won't go there because of the sake of time. But what I do want to talk about, Mr. Chairman, to the director, which is exhilarating to see that you have this network with a university in addition to our housing department. So our housing department is all locked in, their databases, what they're doing in terms of violations and stuff like that, notices. So is all that a part of this free-flowing system that you have put in place called the NST?
Through the chair to the councilman. So the way that our data flows right now, every specialist has access to a Surface tablet through which they collect data, field data through Survey 123. That data comes into to the division. And then I download those data and upload it into NST on a weekly basis. The Department of Building and Housing also shares data with CASE and NST, the Poverty Center, on a weekly basis. So we're able to get a pretty updated snapshot of property data for parcels across the city. And so there's that syncing up between our department, the specialists, building and housing, and then NST also, the Poverty Center also has additional partners that are sharing property data. So we're able to get a pretty holistic picture of what's happening with a parcel. And then from there, the specialists make a decision, is this likely owner occupied? If it is owner occupied, or if it's likely senior occupied, here's going to be my course of action. If it's likely vacant, or if based on metrics within the system, they can assume that it's an out-of-state landlord who's potentially not taking care of the property, then they would potentially make the referral to building and housing. But we do use that system. We rely on the system heavily to decide the course of action that we're going to take with a parcel.
And how many people, Mr. Chairman, to Mrs. Holzer, do you have on budget at this time that's doing that work?
Through the chair to the councilman, currently I have 15 community engagement specialists.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Holzer, looking at this here, how you have the program set up is almost as a companion piece to housing in terms of being able to help the housing department understand what's what. Right now, is there some kind of way, and this is where we're talking about maybe adding a little add-on here, Mr. Chairman, would be how do we help them to write code violations to those homes and those properties that need it, and we just haven't been able to do it with the manpower we currently have in that department.
Through the chair to the councilman. So the specialist right now, I apologize, my dog is trying to get into the room. So if you hear background noise, that's him. Through the chair to the councilman, the way the community engagement specialists now, we make referrals to the Department of Building and Housing through a separate form that we've built out, a referral form. And I just had a conversation with the Department of Building and Housing this past week about how we can continue to build out that form on the back end so that we could better track how B&H referrals from the specialists lead to a complaint. And then ultimately, what is the action taken on the B&H side? So better communication between the programs. Right now, we do a lot of that tracking through NST, but I have talked to Director Donald, and we continue to stay in communication about how her inspectors are working with my specialists, so on and so forth. So trying to sync up our efforts as best as possible.
And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, who is the wonderful person who created this program?
NST or the community engagement specialist program?
The community engagement and
Healthy Homes.
Yes.
Healthy Homes. That's largely Manager Nina Holzer. Obviously, Commissioner Jackson is oversees her, so they deserve a lot of credit. The previous director should also receive a lot of credit since I think she shepherded this idea through and got funding for it, and had a good idea to hire Nina Holzer into the position. So.
And then left her.
Mr. Chairman, on that point.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll yield.
I just, yes to everything the director said, but this was spearheaded by Councilman Brancatelli, getting this to the forefront and making this a priority. So Tony worked for, I don't know how many years to get this program back. So I just wanted to make sure that went said, that Tony was.
Thanks.
I appreciate being corrected. Thank you.
There was a lot of folks making this work.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, the reason why I brought that out, because I see the potential where we are right now with the program. And my suggestion would be, because I don't know how we are lined up and stacked up, I guess we'll start talking about that at a later point in the budget and the general fund, is our building and housing inspectors. I'm having quite a bit of time in my neighborhood getting inspectors out there fundamentally doing what I need them to do, and that is to stabilize our existing housing stock. The challenge for our city is to have great programs like this that gives us an opportunity to have a grade of where the health of our housing stock is, and hopefully be able to shore up some of those areas that are lagging. But nothing is more true than having the kind of housing inspectors in place that can really do a lot of this work, and really get out here and have an engaging process. So I see this, Mr. Chairman, as a program that can be a hybrid of even maybe promoting people to go into building and housing as inspectors, and really beefing that department up, because there is a need. The city has been derelict in this area, and this is nothing to put on on this administration or the people who are running the program now. This is just to say that this is a long, challenging issue for our city, and we need to kind of get this right. This program, I believe, Mr. Chairman, will help us do that with the nominal amount of money we put into it. And I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, maybe even looking at enhancing it and talking about it being some kind of stable, or bringing into the city of Cleveland a strong work ethic in our building and housing departments, where we got inspectors who are going to work and get this work out and get it churned out. But I think that in part of that, maybe the people who put it together may not be thinking about it that way. But surely I see it, Mr. Chairman, as a possibility for a hybrid. And I just appreciate your leadership. I thank my colleague for cutting in to give you your glory on being able to fight to put this program back into funding. And I really appreciate your leadership, Mrs. Holzer, and the guy who works in my neighborhood. He calls me all the time, sometimes too much. And so I really appreciate the fact that it's up and rolling, and you guys are really taking care of business over here on this. And Mr. Chairman, this is a great program. And again, congratulations, and thank you for a champion to fight to put this piece back into play.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. And Director Manez was really a driving force on this. You're spot on in terms of folks who are out in the field and coming into public service, because we already have a couple of code enforcement staff who are now inspectors for the city of Cleveland. And one that highlights out of Councilman Kelly's ward, Sheila Walters, who's in our department as well. So we do get to see that. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's my distinct pleasure to echo almost everything that my colleague, Councilman Joe Jones, said today. I really echo so much of that. And I want to reemphasize that I cannot say enough good things about the Healthy Homes Initiative and then Community Engagement Specialist Program. I think, again, congratulations, Councilman Brancatelli. It was, for all your years of work, it was really the perfect pivot from what used to be the code enforcement partnership. And I think the promise of this program has really borne itself out in terms of being much more resident-centered, much more service-centered, less punitive, very relationship-based. So interestingly, to my colleague, Councilman Joe Jones, I think you have, it would be this interesting culture shift, honestly, to make it a hybrid. I'm really curious and interested in what you were saying. I appreciate it, but I think the core driving value here of the Healthy Homes Initiative has been the resident-centered approach, and I just can't say enough good things about it. I have probably the city's most awesome community engagement specialist in my ward. So, and I also can't think of a better administrator than Nina Holzer. Nina, you are, I think, the glue of this program, and your leadership is critical. I'm so glad you're involved. I have a couple of questions stemming from, I think, what Councilman Jones was saying about capacity and the ongoing potential for this program. I think we've heard through today's presentation what high touch positions these community engagement specialist positions are. And I've seen it happen when I was at Detroit Shore Way Community Development Organization. You get on a phone call with a resident, and to really peel back the layers and understanding what the barriers are. Oh, you've a shortfall in your property taxes. Oh, you're facing this matter or that matter. What are your age limits? How does certain programs fit for you? Every single program is different. It is a high touch activity, and very time consuming to have that authentic conversation with the resident, that intake conversation that not only understands their needs, but builds trust. It's a tremendous amount of time. And Bridget Kent Marquez, who's the community engagement specialist in my area, does it masterfully. And I'm sure the other specialists are excellent as well. The point I'm trying to raise is that I think metrics are critical, but those The time it takes to do this job well is also hard to measure on some days because you have to be right there with the resident in listening mode. And again, very time consuming. Finally, getting to my question, which is through the chair to Ms. Holzer, which is, we're talking about, we have 15 specialists now. I remember when Director Maness first presented the program, she talked about having at least 17. Do we feel we do have the capacity now that we need to really maximize the potential of the work? And if not, how many more specialists would be needed?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I am not shy, so I will always ask for more money. I think that where we are operating at now, we have the entire city covered. There is a community engagement specialist serving every neighborhood in the city of Cleveland. However, I do have some specialists who are working across wards, across CDC service areas. So for example, Detroit Shoreway Community Development Organization, Bridget, is serving both Westtown and Detroit Shoreway. And so I think there are a couple, if we can definitely dig into the map and look where we have specialists who are working across multiple CDC service areas and have a really high number of residential parcels, a higher caseload because of that. I also think that we could, I definitely think that we could add a few more community engagement specialists. Though again, we are covering the entire city now. I think it's just in thinking about having a more equitable load. I am not shy to say that I am happy to manage additional community engagement specialists if it means that we're going to be building more relationships and be able to serve more residents.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the caseload data would be interesting to not only look at the map of the city and how we're divided up amongst specialists, but also to understand that I think it's caseload really means parcel count at the end of the day, pretty much, correct?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, when we did decide where to place community engagement specialists initially, we looked at the sheer number of residential parcels in the CDC service area. So there is a certain, I would say that the number of parcels, yes, though certainly we could dig into more the referral side, and I'm trying to think based on our accomplishments reporting how we could dig in more into like the number of residents each specialist is currently working with and what the potential could be if we had additional capacity. But right now we're really looking just on sheer number of parcels. But I'm happy to think through that further where we could build additional capacity.
Thank you. And then one more question through the chair to Ms. Holzer is really, or to Director Wackers, or to Commissioner Jackson, whomever would be most appropriate. So we have this roughly $1 million line item in this year's budget or in the upcoming budget for this program. And I was a manager of a staff of 10 folks for 6 years, which was long enough to realize that talent retention is critically important. And my question therefore is, are any salary increases of any kind built into this year's budget? Because you heard Councilman Joe Jones, and then my testimony that we are very committed to wanting to continue to work with our community engagement specialists and appreciate the level of service they bring. I think talent retention is extremely important. I'd love to hear whether that's reflected in the budget.
Yeah, Nina, you might want to touch on this. I think you had a strategy for this coming year. I think in terms of what our current line item exists, obviously that was the mayor's proposal. We can work with that for this year, but going forward, talent retention is a big key to the success of this program, and we will need to address it. So I don't know if Nina, if you have anything else you want to talk about.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, as Director Wackers said, we have had the conversation about how we can build raises, quality of life raises into the salary line item in the contracts. I believe if we're kept at our current allocation, there is a way for us to do that without impacting the rest of the budget too much. Though, yeah, I'm fairly certain the way, if the allocation were to stay the same, we could certainly do it. Again, it's something that we are concerned about. I think all of our community engagement specialists are absolutely stellar and they're doing hard work, and I want to see them be rewarded for that work and feel that they are valued at their CDCs and are able to get those raises as well. So I do think the way it's built now, we can provide those raises in our next round. Assuming that the CDC provides those quality of life raises. I know that not all CDCs do that, but I want to, again, make sure that I'm fairly certain the way that it is now, we can provide for that.
Thanks. Just a clarification through the chair to Ms. Holzer. So CDCs can supplement the compensation. Is that what you meant by quality of life enhancement?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I should have been clearer. I just meant that if we can build raises into the salary line item of our current contracts. The way it is now, in order to keep things equitable, we're hoping that all community engagement specialists will be paid for through their Healthy Homes contract. I think that with the previous director, we felt like if a CDC was adding to the salary, it would create some inequities where potentially one CDC could be paying someone or adding to the salary, and then for doing the same work, someone could be paid a lot more at one CDC than another. So we are trying to keep it even across the board. I just meant to say that I'm fairly certain that we could build in raises to our current salary line item.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And I look forward to continuing to work together. This is an outstanding program.
Great. Thank you. Do I have any more questions on the Healthy Home Initiative? Great. Thank you, Nina. That was a healthy conversation. I think we got through a lot of the agenda points and certainly have a lot of work ahead of us. So congratulations. Director, I think we finished up this morning's session. So we're probably going to take a break and then come back and then go until about 10 tonight to get through the second half. Or we can just bring it back tomorrow. I guess I'm getting nods. We'll bring.
We could do it now.
We can. So we have all the information sent to us for the that's in our agenda for chapters 3 and 4, and then we have the information for Wednesdays already in our drop boxes as well. So we have that all in advance. So we will adjourn and then come back tomorrow and pick up where we left off with chapters 3 and 4. Director?
Yeah, that sounds good, Chairman. I think we will work to be brief and concise and respond quickly to questions, and where appropriate, we'll be happy to follow up with questions after the fact if the council agree.
Great. That'll be great. So thank you all very much. A robust conversation today. Appreciate everybody's patience. And then we will pick up again tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning.